Chapter 652. When everyone heard that Diwu Qingyan had taken the initiative to choose Qin Chuan as her teammate, they all subconsciously looked at Qin Chuan, who was hiding in the crowd. Their eyes were filled with envy. Jiang Feng's face was even more bitter. Although he had expected this, he still felt a little sad when it really happened. Wang Wei looked at Qin Chuan, who was in the crowd, and asked Qin Chuan, do you have any objections? Qin Chuan grinned when he heard this and asked, will my opinion be accepted? Not really. Wang Wei laughed and said to everyone, all right, now the rest of you are free to form your own team. When he heard Wang Wei's words, Qin Chuan sighed and looked helplessly at Lu Zi, who was standing next to him angrily. Logically speaking, he really did not want to be in the same group as Diwu Qingyan. However, as the person who was chosen, he did not have the right to refuse. Logically speaking, normal people would not refuse to become teammates with a beauty. However, for some reason, Qin Chuan always had a natural resistance towards Diwu Qingyan in his heart. Congratulations on becoming teammates with Diwu Qingyan, Lu Zi said with some distress. I can only find another girl. I hope she doesn't have a teammate yet. Qin Chuan smiled bitterly when he heard this and said to Lu Zi, good luck. At this time, Diwu Qingyan had already walked over. She glanced at Lu Zi's back and said to Qin Chuan with some embarrassment, I really didn't know who to choose, so I chose you. I hope you don't mind. When he heard Diwu Qingyan's explanation, Qin Chuan smiled and replied, it's okay. It doesn't matter who your teammate is. At this time, everyone had already found their teammates and stood together with them. When Wang Wei saw this scene, he said to everyone, it seems that everyone has found their teammates. Now, I will arrange today's training mission for you. You can go to the training room now. There is a strength tester that I have prepared for you. Today, you will supervise each other. When you can hit 100 kilograms 3 times in a row, you can rest. In the training room, Qin Chuan looked at Diwu Qingyan, who had changed into a tight-fitting white sportswear, and the expression on his face suddenly became a little strange. Seeing the change in expression on Qin Chuan's face, Diwu Qingyan asked curiously, what's wrong? I'm fine. Qin Chuan shook his head and did not dare to look at Diwu Qingyan. It cannot be helped. Diwu Qingyan's figure was just too hot. Previously, Diwu Qingyan always wore a loose white dress, so her figure could not be seen. Qin Chuan also did not care about this kind of thing. Now that Diwu Qingyan had changed into sportswear that showed off her figure, it was difficult for Qin Chuan to deliberately ignore Diwu Qingyan's figure. At this time, the other students nearby were all looking at Qin Chuan with envious eyes. They also wanted to be teammates with Diwu Qingyan. How could it be better to peek from afar than to look at her openly? Qin Chuan did not care about what others were thinking. He only wanted to start training as soon as possible and control his own strength as soon as possible. Let's start with me. Qin Chuan said to Diwu Qingyan, help me record some of my questions and then give me feedback. Diwu Qingyan nodded and said, okay. Seeing that Diwu Qingyan agreed, Qin Chuan began to test. First, he started with the most basic punching force of 100 kilograms. After 10 rounds of testing, Qin Chuan found a feeling of hitting 100 kilograms of force. Then, he began to make subtle adjustments. 100, 101, 2, 99, 6, 102. Qin Chuan punched continuously, making adjustments with each punch. However, the more he adjusted, the more he could not find the initial feeling. He could not help but start to feel impatient. Qin Chuan stopped for a while. At this moment, Diwu Qingyan suddenly stopped Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan stopped what he was doing and looked at Diwu Qingyan in confusion. He did not understand why Diwu Qingyan stopped him. Facing Qin Chuan's puzzled gaze, Diwu Qingyan said to Qin Chuan, I think you're trying too hard to find that feeling. Instead, it's making your hand feel worse and worse. You should relax a little. Being able to control and release your strength freely is the best state. Hearing Diwu Qingyan's words, a look of surprise flashed across Qin Chuan's face. After pondering for a moment, he said to Diwu Qingyan, thank you for your reminder. We're teammates. It's only right for us to help each other. Diwu Qingyan smiled slightly. Hurry up and try it. Qin Chuan nodded his head. He followed Diwu Qingyan's advice and tried to relax his mind. Then, he punched out again. This time, he punched out 98 kilograms. However, he did not care about it, nor did he deliberately adjust his strength. Instead, he punched out again. 98. When he saw this number, Qin Chuan couldn't help but feel excited. However, it was this excitement that caused the strength of his next punch to increase. Aya! Qin Chuan waved his hand in annoyance. I was too excited just now, and the strength in my hand increased. That's why I told you to stay calm. Don't get excited or nervous. Just stay calm. Diwu Qingyan smiled at Qin Chuan and said, Do your best. I believe you can do it. Qin Chuan looked at Diwu Qingyan with a complicated gaze when he heard this. Then, he said, Thank you for your reminder. Diwu Qingyan looked at Qin Chuan with a slightly reproachful gaze and said, I've said it before. We're both friends and teammates. It's only right for us to help each other. Or are you saying that you don't treat me as your friend at all? You misunderstood. Qin Chuan wanted to explain, but Diwu Qingyan suddenly raised her hand and gently covered his mouth. A delicate fragrance drifted from Diwu Qingyan's palm to Qin Chuan's nose. Don't explain anymore. Hurry up and continue training. Hearing Diwu Qingyan's words, Qin Chuan immediately came back to his senses and quickly took a step back. Then he forced a smile and said, Then, let's continue training. When Qin Chuan began to punch again, Diwu Qingyan began to take the initiative to tell Qin Chuan some of the details that he still needed to pay attention to. Gradually, Qin Chuan found the feeling and began to feel more comfortable. He actually punched out 3 times with 100 kilograms of strength without realizing it. When he saw the number 100 appear 3 times in a row, Qin Chuan could not help but be stunned. It had only been 10 minutes since the start of the training, and he actually succeeded? That's great, you succeeded. Compared to the surprised Qin Chuan, Diwu Qingyan was obviously more excited. She actually reached out and hugged Qin Chuan. She happily said to Qin Chuan, I knew you could do it. Chapter 653. Qin Chuan stood there in a daze. The fragrance that assaulted his face stunned him. When he felt the softness from his chest, his face instantly turned red. At the same time, Diwu Qingyan suddenly let go of him and jumped away like a frightened deer. Then, she turned her body sideways, as if she did not dare to look at Qin Chuan. I'm really sorry, I was a little too excited just now. Hearing Diwu Qingyan's shy words, Qin Chuan coughed softly and said, It's okay, it's your turn to train now. Diwu Qingyan nodded lightly when she heard that. Then, she secretly glanced at Qin Chuan from the corner of her eyes. When she realized that Qin Chuan was also looking at her, she quickly turned her head away and pretended that nothing had happened. She's too cute. An exclamation came from not far away. Jiang Feng, who had appeared nearby, looked at the blushing Diwu Qingyan. Looking at Diwu Qingyan's exaggerated figure, he was dumbfounded. Looking at Jiang Feng, who suddenly appeared, Qin Chuan smiled and asked, Why are you here? I was passing by, so I came to see how you guys are doing. Jiang Feng stared at Diwu Qingyan without blinking. He really did not want to look away for even a second. Diwu Qingyan seemed to be a little uncomfortable being stared at by Jiang Feng. She said in a low voice, You should go back and train quickly. Qin Chuan has already finished training. When Jiang Feng heard this, he subconsciously looked at the strength tester at the side. When he saw the 3 consecutive numbers of 100, he could not help but widen his eyes and exclaim, How long has it been? You've already finished training? Qin Chuan chuckled and explained, This is all thanks to Miss Diwu. She helped me a lot. Diwu Qingyan looked at Qin Chuan with a blaming gaze and said, We're friends. Why are you calling me Miss Diwu? Just call me Qingyan. Hearing Diwu Qingyan's words, before Qin Chuan could say anything, Jiang Feng said sourly, We are friends too, but you don't even let me call you Qingyan. No. Diwu Qingyan glanced at Jiang Feng and said, You can call me that too. I rejected it because we just met. Jiang Feng immediately said, Since we are friends, can you help me train them? I also want to be like Qin Chuan and finish training as soon as possible. With that, Jiang Feng turned to Qin Chuan and asked, You don't mind, do you? Qin Chuan shrugged and said to Jiang Feng, Of course not. Friends should help each other. Why would I mind? Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Jiang Feng immediately turned his gaze to Diwu Qingyan and asked expectantly, Diwu, Qingyan, are you willing to help me? Diwu Qingyan looked at Jiang Feng awkwardly and said, but I haven't finished my training yet. If I help you now, my own training progress might be delayed. Hearing this, Jiang Feng's face immediately showed an apologetic expression. He quickly said to Diwu Qingyan, I'm sorry, I didn't think it through. It's okay. You should go back. Your teammates must still be waiting for you. Diwu Qingyan advised Jiang Feng. You still have to hurry up and train. Then I'll go back first. Jiang Feng looked at Diwu Qingyan with some reluctance, and then walked away, looking back every few steps. After Jiang Feng left, Qin Chuan turned to look at Diwu Qingyan and found that Diwu Qingyan seemed to be a little sad. What's wrong? Qin Chuan looked at Diwu Qingyan with some confusion. Are you not feeling well? Diwu Qingyan shook her head gently and looked at Qin Chuan with a slightly complicated gaze. She asked, Did you really want me to help Jiang Feng train just now? Qin Chuan was stunned for a moment and said with some confusion, We're friends. There shouldn't be a problem with helping, right? Diwu Qingyan looked at Qin Chuan with some annoyance and then said, No problem. No problem. I'm going to start training. Move aside. Seeing that Diwu Qingyan suddenly became a little fierce, Qin Chuan was a little confused. However, he still obediently moved aside. Looking at Diwu Qingyan, who had started training, he said to Diwu Qingyan, You swung your fist just now, I know. Diwu Qingyan turned to look at Qin Chuan. It's none of your business. Qin Chuan, although Qin Chuan had already completed the training of hitting 100 kilograms 3 times in a row, he still did not relax. After Diwu Qingyan finished her training, he started training again. However, Diwu Qingyan took the initiative to leave to find Jiang Feng. I'm going to tutor Jiang Feng. As Qin Chuan trained, he recalled the last sentence that Diwu Qingyan said to him before she left. He could not help but laugh. She said that because she wanted me to ask her to stay, right? Thinking of this, Qin Chuan shook his head gently. If Diwu Qingyan was Lu Zi, he would definitely ask her to stay. He was not a straight man. It was not to the extent that he could not see a girl's little temper. He just did not want to cause too many misunderstandings. Although Qin Chuan was a little conflicted when he was chosen as a teammate by Diwu Qingyan in the beginning, he felt a little lucky after interacting with her. If it were not for Diwu Qingyan's reminder and guidance, it would have been difficult for him to get into the groove so quickly. From the perspective of training, he had profited. Qin Chuan trained alone until almost 8 o'clock in the evening. Only then did people leave the training room one after another. At this time, Lu Zi also came to Qin Chuan's side. When she saw that Qin Chuan had consecutively hit the numbers of 106 times, she was extremely surprised. You can actually hit the same number 6 times in a row? I've only done it 4 times. Lu Zi originally thought that her performance this time was already excellent enough. However, she did not expect that Qin Chuan's performance was not only better than hers, it was even more exaggerated. Qin Chuan nodded and said to Lu Zi, The method I shared with you was taught to me by Diwu Qingyan. Lu Zi was slightly stunned when she heard this. Then, she subconsciously looked around. When she realized that Diwu Qingyan was not nearby, she asked curiously, Has Diwu Qingyan left? Qin Chuan shook his head and said, I don't know if she left or not. She went to look for Jiang Feng around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Jiang Feng? Lu Zi seemed a little surprised. Diwu Qingyan actually took the initiative to look for Jiang Feng? Could it be that she was really moved by Jiang Feng? But if that's the case, why did she choose you as her teammate? In the face of Lu Zi's series of questions, Qin Chuan smiled bitterly and said, This is a long story. Let me tell you slowly. When she heard Qin Chuan's story, Lu Zi was completely stunned. She could not help but say, After all this time, Diwu Qingyan was not moved by Jiang Feng. She was moved by you. Chapter 654. I didn't mean to move her. Qin Chuan smiled and said to Lu Zi, Let's go, we should go eat. Lu Zi looked at the magnanimous smile on Qin Chuan's face and asked with some hesitation, Diwu Qingyan is so beautiful. Are you really not moved at all? Lucy was really curious about this question. As a girl, it was really difficult for her to be picky about Diwu Qingyan's appearance and figure. Facing such a near-perfect girl, there was probably no boy who could not help but be moved. She dared to guarantee that if 100 boys were asked who was willing to marry Diwu Qingyan, at least 99 of them would say yes. And the only one who would not be willing, she hoped that it would be Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan heard this and looked at Lu Zi subtly and asked, "If I am moved by beautiful girls, then how many times would I have been moved in the past 2 years? I am not that kind of shallow person. Compared to Diwu Qingyan, the possibility of me being moved by you is higher." As he spoke, Qin Chuan suddenly leaned close to Lu Zi and whispered in Lu Zi's ear, "In my opinion, you are more beautiful than her." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lu Zi's face suddenly turned red. Just as she was feeling sweet and shy, Qin Chuan had already walked far away and shouted at her without looking back. "What are you still standing there for? There will only be leftovers in the restaurant later." Lu Zi heard Qin Chuan's words and immediately chased after him. She snorted and said, "The restaurant will not have leftovers. I can ask the chef to add another dish for me." Qin Chuan smiled and replied, "Then can you add another dish for me? I want to eat red braised meat." LVZ smiled when she heard that and said, "Seeing that your performance today was pretty good, then I'll reluctantly agree to your request." Qin Chuan and Lu Zi chatted and laughed as they walked forward. They did not notice that there were 2 people watching them from behind. Diwu Qingyan looked at Qin Chuan's back with a complicated gaze. No one knew what she was thinking. Jiang Feng, who was standing at the side, coughed lightly and said with some emotion, "Qin Chuan and Lu Zi's relationship is really good." Hearing Jiang Feng's words, Diwu Qingyan pursed her lips and replied, "I'm a bit tired. I'll go back first." Jiang Feng quickly asked, "Why don't we go back and rest after dinner?" However, Diwu Qingyan had no intention of responding to Jiang Feng's suggestion. She turned around and left. Jiang Feng stood where he was and looked at Diwu Qingyan's departing figure with eyes full of bitterness. "If he invited you, you wouldn't refuse, would you?" After dinner, Qin Chuan did not return to the dormitory to rest. Instead, he went to Wang Wei's private training room. "Student Qin Chuan, welcome." Ella, who was wearing a black uniform and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, stood in front of Qin Chuan, looking elegant and intellectual. Seeing Ella's attire, Qin Chuan smiled and asked, "Ella, does the instructor like you to wear different uniforms?" Ella smiled slightly when she heard this and replied very vividly, "Student Qin Chuan, you know that men always have some special hobbies, don't you?" After getting this ambiguous answer, Qin Chuan smiled and walked toward the training room. He wanted to continue the training that afternoon and improve his control of his strength. After Qin Chuan had trained for more than an hour, Wang Wei also came to the training room. He looked at Qin Chuan, who was punching wildly and could already punch out 100 kilograms of strength 7 times in a row. A hint of admiration flashed in his eyes. There was no lack of geniuses in this world. What was really lacking were geniuses who were willing to work hard and improve, such as Qin Chuan. Phew! Qin Chuan let out a light breath and temporarily stopped training. He needed to rest and recover his strength. It was also at this time that he noticed Wang Wei standing not far away. Wang Wei slowly walked in front of Qin Chuan and said to Qin Chuan, "You've done very well, but this is far from enough." Qin Chuan immediately asked, "Instructor, please give me some pointers." Wang Wei did not speak. He walked in front of the strength tester, raised his hand, and lightly punched out. He punched out 1 kilogram of strength, followed by a second punch of 2 kilograms. Just like that, Wang Wei continuously punched out 100 times. His strength also increased from 1 kilogram to 100 kilograms without any deviation. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan could not help but be shocked. He did not expect Wang Wei's control of his own strength to be so meticulous. Seeing the shock on Qin Chuan's face, Wang Wei chuckled and said to Qin Chuan, "Do you think you can do it?" Qin Chuan shook his head and said very frankly, "I can't do it now, but I will definitely be able to do it in the future." Hearing this, Wang Wei nodded his head and said to Qin Chuan, "Back then, it took me an entire 3 years to reach this step. With your talent and hard work, you will definitely need less time to reach this step than me. Your performance today is already very good. At the very least, among this batch of students, you are the most outstanding." Hearing Wang Wei's praise, Qin Chuan did not feel proud. He humbly asked Wang Wei for advice and asked, "Instructor, what level do I have to reach before I can pilot a battlesuit?" "You have to punch out the same strength 10 times in a row. This is the basic level of control over your own strength. It is also the basic requirement to pilot a battlesuit." Wang Wei said to Qin Chuan, "When you can do what I did, you will be an excellent EXO." Speaking of this, Wang Wei suddenly changed the topic and said, "But you will only be excellent. If you want to become an excellent EXO, or even the strongest EXO, you must have perfect control over your own strength." Qin Chuan asked curiously, "What is perfect?" Hearing this, Wang Wei explained to Qin Chuan, "You can control your own strength as you wish. This is called perfection. Even I can't do it." While talking, Wang Wei punched at the strength tester again. This time, he punched out 76 kilograms of strength. Looking at the data displayed on the interface, Wang Wei sighed and said, "Actually, I wanted to punch out 75 kilograms of strength." Hearing Wang Wei's words, Qin Chuan finally understood what it meant to be able to control one's own strength at will. He also tried to throw out a punch, and it produced 54 kilograms of strength. However, what he wanted was 40 kilograms. There was a difference of 14 kilograms. Seeing this, Wang Wei chuckled. He patted Qin Chuan's shoulder and said to Qin Chuan, "Work hard, young man. Maybe it will be difficult for me to control my own strength perfectly in my life, but I believe that you can do it." Hearing this, Qin Chuan pursed his lips and clenched his fists. He said solemnly, "I can do it." Chapter 655. Those who were able to enter the special training camp were all geniuses. Even if they were stupid, there was a limit. After the first day of training, everyone was able to hit 100 kilograms of force 3 times in a row. After the second day of training, most of them were able to hit 100 kilograms of force 10 times in a row. By the third day, everyone was able to hit 100 kilograms of force. On the afternoon of the third day, Wang Wei added a new training mission for everyone, which was the training of strength increment. From 1 kilogram to 10 kilograms, the first person to complete it will be rewarded. When everyone heard Wang Wei's words, they all pricked up their ears out of curiosity, wanting to hear what the reward was this time. Facing everyone's curious gazes, Wang Wei said indifferently, "The reward this time will be a battlesuit." Hearing Wang Wei's words, the audience burst into an uproar after a short silence. Everyone exclaimed and looked at Wang Wei in disbelief. The reward this time was a battlesuit. Someone asked while breathing heavily, "Instructor, are you serious?" Someone else asked, "Instructor, you're not talking about the iron armor battlesuit, are you?" Facing the excited crowd, Wang Wei chuckled and said to them, "As everyone knows, the Sky Sea Special Training Camp is the best training camp for EXOs in the entire Star Dragon Federation. What I want to tell you now is that the Sky Sea Special Training Camp can not only produce excellent EXOs, but also the best battlesuit manufacturing base in the entire Star Dragon Federation. The reward I want to give to the winner is not a standard battlesuit, but an exclusive battlesuit tailored according to the winner's data." Boom! This time, the scene completely exploded. After hearing Wang Wei's explanation, everyone went crazy. No one thought that the reward this time would be an exclusive battlesuit. One had to know that having a personal battle armor was the dream of every cultivator. Seeing that everyone was about to go crazy, Wang Wei raised his hand to signal everyone to be quiet. When no one made a sound, he said indifferently, "Don't get too excited, because not all of you can get such a reward. Only the first one to complete the training will get the reward. Do you understand?" Hearing Wang Wei's words, the excited crowd couldn't help but calm down. There was only one reward, which meant that only 1 out of the 30 of them could get an exclusive battlesuit. "All right, the training starts now. Those who are confident can come and show me what you've got. Following Wang Wei's words, everyone went straight to their respective strength testing devices. No one immediately went to find Wang Wei to take the test. Seeing this, Wang Wei nodded in satisfaction and said in a low voice, "At least you have some brains. You're not confident enough to think you can do it immediately." Stimulated by the reward of the exclusive battlesuit, every student trained with 300% concentration. However, after an hour, not a single one of them was able to successfully hit 1 kilogram of strength. "I can't be too hasty. I have to be slow." Qin took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He still understood the principle of more haste, less speed. Beside Qin, Diwu Qingyan looked at Qin, who was adjusting his mentality. A hint of admiration flashed in her eyes. There were really too few people who could adjust their mentality in the face of such a tempting reward. Just from this point alone, she felt that Qin's chances of winning were much higher than the others. Seeing that Qin had adjusted his mentality and started training again, Diwu Qingyan retracted her gaze, sighed softly, and continued her training. When night fell, the sparse sound of punching could still be heard in the training room. Most people had already gone back to rest after half a day of training. Only a few people were still persevering, and one of them was Qin. Qin moved extremely quickly and carefully as he threw 6 punches in a row. The numbers from 1 kilogram to 6 kilograms continuously appeared on the interface. However, when Qin threw the 7th punch, the number that appeared on the interface was 8 kilograms. The mistake this time has become even more serious. Qin looked at the data on the interface and could not help but frown. Previously, he could still control the error to within 1 kilogram, but now he could not do it anymore. This also made Qin realize that he should rest. At the thought of resting, a strong sense of fatigue suddenly surged up. Qin shook his hand and looked to the side. He realized that Diwu Qingyan was still training, and she was doing quite well. When Qin turned his gaze over, Diwu Qingyan stopped what she was doing and said to Qin, "Training blindly will make people feel tired. Maybe you can stop and enjoy the scenery around you." Qin was slightly stunned when he heard this. Then he looked around. Other than the training equipment, there was no scenery. Seeing Qin's performance, Diwu Qingyan smiled. "Am I not a beautiful scenery?" Hearing Diwu Qingyan's words, Qin could not help but laugh. He replied, "You are indeed a beautiful scenery. All right, see you later. I have to go back and rest." Diwu Qingyan looked at Qin's back as he left. After hesitating for a moment, she chased after him and walked side by side with Qin. She whispered to Qin, "You are different from the others. You are the most special person I have ever seen." Qin smiled. "You have only left the clan for a while. You have seen too few people. There are many people like me in this world." Diwu Qingyan shook her head gently. "Maybe there are many talented geniuses in this world, but in my heart, there is only one Qin. You're the only one." Hearing Diwu Qingyan's confession, Qin could not help but raise his eyebrows slightly. He replied, "You can be more reserved and tactful when you speak. Otherwise, it will cause others to have thoughts that they should not have. That is not good." Hearing Qin's kind reminder, Diwu Qingyan looked at Qin seriously and asked, "Then, do you have any thoughts?" As soon as she finished speaking, Diwu Qingyan suddenly took a step forward and blocked Qin's path. She looked at Qin seriously and asked, "Do you have any thoughts about me?" Facing Diwu Qingyan's bold and straightforward question, Qin remained silent for a moment before shaking his head. He replied, "Sorry, I don't have any improper thoughts about you." After answering Diwu Qingyan's question, Qin walked around Diwu Qingyan and continued forward. At this moment, Diwu Qingyan suddenly reached out and grabbed his arm. "But I have thoughts about you." Chapter 656. It was already late at night. Diwu Qingyan stood alone, not far away from the training room. She looked down at her palms and was lost in thought. Just an hour ago, in the face of her bold and passionate confession, Qin's response to her was to shake off her hand. Why is this happening? Diwu Qingyan was puzzled and very confused. Why did her peerless beauty, which could make all men fall head over heels for her, not have any effect in front of Qin Chuan? She could not understand why, but there was one thing she was sure of, and that was that Qin Chuan was really different. The next morning, Qin Chuan arrived at the training room very early. However, he did not expect that someone would be even earlier than him. Looking at Jiang Feng, who was practicing seriously, Qin Chuan slowly walked over and said with a smile, "I thought I must be the earliest, but I didn't expect you to be even earlier than me. Looking at the sweat on your body, you must have been here for a while." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Jiang Feng stopped training and raised his hand to wipe the sweat on his face. Then he said to Qin Chuan, "I came at 5 o'clock. It's been exactly an hour now." Qin Chuan glanced at the data on the interface and nodded gently. "I can see that you're working very hard, and you've achieved good results. I'm still far from being able to compare to you." Jiang Feng smiled. "I know you've already done this much yesterday. I'm almost the same as you now, but you'll soon surpass me." Jiang Feng was telling the truth, but Qin Chuan did not want to show off or hurt Jiang Feng's confidence. He smiled and replied, "Let's work hard together. I'm going to train too." Looking at Qin Chuan's back as he turned and left, Jiang Feng pursed his lips and suddenly shouted at Qin Chuan, "Do you know why I'm working so hard? Because I want to win this competition and give that exclusive armor to Qin Yin as a gift." Hearing Jiang Feng shout, Qin Chuan raised his hand and waved. Without turning his head, he said, "I wish you success." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Jiang Feng couldn't help but clench his fists and say in a low voice, "I will prove to Qin Yin that I love her more than you do." Jiang Feng did not expect that after he had completed the challenge from 1 kilogram to 8 kilograms, the competition would unexpectedly end just as he was about to continue to the next round. When Jiang Feng heard the news, a complicated expression appeared on his face. He sighed and asked the student next to him, "Who completed the assessment?" "Qin Chuan." That person said with some envy. Qin Chuan didn't just hit a 10-hit combo, he hit a 12-hit combo. From 1 kilogram to 12 kilograms, that's terrifying. Hearing this person's words, Jiang Feng felt as if he was struck by lightning. He stood there for a long time and only came back to his senses when Wang Wei shouted for him to gather. His face was full of loneliness as he muttered in a low voice, "I really am not as good as him." Just as Jiang Feng was feeling sad, the others had already gathered and stood in front of Wang Wei. Everyone looked at Qin Chuan, who was standing beside Wang Wei with an envious expression on their faces. Facing the complicated gazes of the crowd, Qin Chuan didn't feel too excited or agitated, because this was completely within his expectations. In fact, the reason why Wang Wei set up such a competition was to give him a battlesuit for a reasonable reason. Of course, this was only Qin Chuan's guess and not something Wang Wei told him. The reason he had such a guess was because he would train in Wang Wei's private training room every night. Wang Wei knew his training progress very well. If there was anyone who had the highest chance of getting first place in this competition, it would definitely be him. "Qin Chuan, show everyone again." Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about these things, Wang Wei suddenly asked Qin Chuan to show everyone again. Qin Chuan came back to his senses and did not have any objections. He directly walked to the strength testing machine and threw out 10 punches in a row. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10. When they saw Qin Chuan throw out 10 consecutive punches, the envy on everyone's faces turned into amazement. Jiang Feng stood in the crowd and looked at Qin Chuan's performance as if he was taking a stroll in the park. The expression on his face could not help but become even more bitter. He had to be careful and meticulous when he wanted to throw out 8 consecutive punches, but Qin Chuan could easily and calmly throw out 10 consecutive punches as if he was drinking water. The difference between them was too big. As everyone has seen, Qin Chuan has completed the test and successfully threw out 10 consecutive punches. Then, the exclusive armor reward will belong to Qin Chuan. If anyone has any objections, you can raise them now. As Wang Wei's voice fell, no one stood up to raise any objections. This was because they all saw Qin Chuan's performance. No one could do better than Qin Chuan. They accepted their loss wholeheartedly. When Wang Wei saw that no one raised any objections, he turned to Qin Xuan and said, Qin Xuan, the exclusive armor will be sent to you before you leave the special training camp. I believe you'll be very satisfied. Qin Xuan smiled and said to Wang Wei, Thank you, instructor. After today's training, Qin Xuan did not go to Wang Wei's private training room as usual. Instead, he had dinner with Lu Zi and returned to the dormitory. After returning to the dormitory, Lu Zi smiled at Qin Xuan and said, Congratulations, you've received the exclusive armor made by the Tianhai Special Training Camp. When you advance to the Golden Core stage, your strength will definitely improve qualitatively. Hearing Lu Zi's words, Qin Xuan did not respond. He suddenly reached out and grabbed Lu Zi's arm. With a little force, he pulled Lu Zi into his arms. Lu Zi was shocked by Qin Xuan's sudden intimate action, but she quickly calmed down. She quietly stayed in Qin Xuan's arms and asked shyly, What are you doing? Qin Xuan chuckled and responded, Nothing, I just want to hug you. You don't mind, do you? Hearing Qin Xuan's question, Lu Zi whispered, It's rare for you to be so open-minded. If I minded, I would have kicked you away. Qin Xuan pretended not to hear Lu Zi's whispers. His hands moved from Lu Zi's back to her slender waist, and even moved down a little. Lu Zi was completely stunned by Qin Xuan's actions. She never dreamed that Qin Xuan would do such a bold thing to her. Although she was not disgusted by it, wasn't this development a little too fast? Just as Lu Zi's mind was in a mess, Qin Xuan had already let go of Lu Zi. He coughed lightly and said, Okay, go back and rest. After saying that, Qin Xuan ran away, leaving Lu Zi alone in a daze. Chapter 657. Standing in front of the iron armor battlesuit once again, compared to the excitement of the first time, everyone was extremely confident this time. They believed that with their current ability, they would never let the same embarrassing thing happen again. Wang Wei looked at everyone who was in high spirits and said with a smile, Everyone, get into your battlesuit. Let's start your first real piloting of a battlesuit. Hearing Wang Wei's words, everyone immediately opened the cockpit and got inside. After a short period of familiarization, everyone began to try to move the iron armor battlesuit. Along with a series of clattering sounds, everyone slowly walked out of the iron armor battlesuit room and came to the open field outside. Wang Wei looked at everyone's performance and asked indifferently, How do you feel now? Hearing Wang Wei's question, everyone immediately answered at once. It feels great. I feel like the battlesuit has become a part of my body. I can operate it according to my will. Compared to this experience, the last experience is nothing. This is the real feeling of piloting a battlesuit. If I had known that physical training and strength control were so important, I would have done these training earlier. Hearing everyone's response, Wang Wei smiled and said to them, What you are doing now is just simple movements in the battlesuit. Next, we will teach you some difficult movements and some combo skills that are commonly used in battle. Hearing Wang Wei's words, everyone immediately shut their mouths and stopped talking, waiting for Wang Wei to start teaching. They had been in the training camp for 10 days. Just piloting a battlesuit to move around was not enough to satisfy their appetite at all. Seeing that everyone was so enthusiastic, Wang Wei said to everyone, Then let's start with the first training, which is basic strength training. Basic strength training? Hearing Wang Wei's words, everyone was puzzled. They had been doing physical training and strength training for 10 days. Now that they finally started piloting a battlesuit, they were going to do strength training again? As if he had seen through their doubts, Wang Wei smiled and said to them, Fighting in a battlesuit is different from fighting in your own body. A battlesuit will increase your strength by at least 10 times. A huge increase will lead to a huge difference. If any of you can hit 100 kilograms with a battlesuit right now, we can skip the basic strength training. As he spoke, Wang Wei had already taken out a strength testing device. Then he called out, Qin Xuan, your control of strength is the best among all of us. You'll be the one to test it. Hearing this, Qin Xuan slowly walked to the strength tester. He controlled the battlesuit and punched the strength tester lightly. When the iron fist hit the strength tester, it directly smashed a hole in the strength tester. Seeing that the strength tester was smashed by Qin Chuan's punch, everyone was stunned. Qin Chuan himself was even more confused. He had tried to reduce the strength of his fist as much as possible, but the result clearly told him that he had used too much strength. Wang Wei was not surprised by this result. He calmly said to everyone, "Do you still think this training is meaningless?" This time, no one asked any more questions. At this time, they also thoroughly realized that they were still rookies when it came to piloting a battlesuit. It was best not to question Wang Wei's words. Since there are no objections, now everyone can start piloting the battlesuit. Do whatever you want. Hearing this, everyone was puzzled and asked, "Do whatever you want?" "Yes, do whatever you want." Wang Wei nodded and said, "You can do whatever you want, but the premise is that you can't leave the battlesuit. Everything you do must be done under the premise of piloting the battlesuit." Hearing Wang Wei's precise answer, everyone understood that Wang Wei wanted them to familiarize themselves with piloting the battlesuit as soon as possible. Therefore, no one asked any more questions and began to do their own things. Some people began to run, some began to punch, and some even began to dance. Qin Chuan was also running normally, and Lu Zi was also running with him. Running is the best exercise for the whole body. It can make the whole body move. Now that the battlesuit is also a part of our body, we have to integrate the body and the battlesuit during the process of running. Qin Chuan ran while guiding Lu Zi, letting Lu Zi adjust her body's condition during the process of running. Just as Qin Chuan and Lu Zi were running, another battlesuit suddenly appeared beside them. Seeing the label on it, Qin Chuan knew that it was Diwu Qingyin's battlesuit. While running, Diwu Qingyin said to Qin Chuan, "I didn't have time to congratulate you on receiving the battlesuit reward yesterday. It shouldn't be too late to make up for it now, right?" Qin Chuan chuckled and replied, "Thank you." Diwu Qingyin asked curiously, "I wonder if you have any special requirements for this battlesuit?" Hearing Diwu Qingyin's question, Lu Zi, who was at the side, also pricked up her ears curiously. She also wanted to know what Qin Chuan had requested of Wang Wei. Qin Chuan recalled the conversation that happened in the private training room that night, smiled slightly, and replied, "I don't have any special requirements, just normal requirements." Hearing Qin Chuan's vague answer, Diwu Qingyin did not continue to ask. Instead, she changed the topic and asked, "What are your plans after graduating from the special training camp?" "I haven't thought about it yet. I think I will go back to school to continue my studies." This was not Qin Chuan being perfunctory with Diwu Qingyin. He had really decided to go back to school directly after graduating from the special training camp. Even if he had other things to do, he would do it after seeing Ningya. Diwu Qingyin looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle gaze and said, "Actually, I have something very important to do after leaving the clan this time. However, I'm alone in the outside world. It will be very difficult for me to complete this matter alone, so I want to ask for your help." Qin Chuan was slightly taken aback when he heard this. He did not expect Diwu Qingyin to make such a request at this time. After thinking for a while, Qin Chuan replied seriously, "Actually, I think you have found a wrong person. Although I look very strong, I am only a small cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment. I might not be able to help you much. Maybe you can find someone stronger to help you, such as an instructor." Chapter 658. After thinking about it again and again, Qin Chuan still decided to reject Diwu Qingyin. To be honest, he did not know much about Diwu Qingyin, and he knew even less about the hidden Diwu family. Now that Diwu Qingyin suddenly asked him for help, he could not agree without understanding the situation. Qin Chuan knew very well how many people in the outside world were watching him and how many people wanted to kill him. If it was not necessary, he really did not want to get involved in other people's affairs. Lu Zi, who had known Qin Chuan for a long time, could understand Qin Chuan's feelings and thoughts, but Diwu Qingyin was different. When she heard Qin Chuan reject her, Diwu Qingyin was very sad. Her gaze towards Qin Chuan also became gloomy. However, all of this was blocked by the iron armor. so Qin Chuan could not see it. Sorry, I was thinking too much. Sorry to disturb you. After saying this, Diwu Qingyan turned around and left. Looking at Diwu Qingyan's back, Qin Chuan sighed and asked Lu Zi, "Do you think I did something wrong?" Lu Zi shook her head gently and said to Qin Chuan, "Don't feel burdened. It's not wrong for her to ask you for help, and it's not wrong for you to reject her. You don't understand her difficulties, and she doesn't understand yours either. If two people can't understand each other, then there's no need to force them to be friends." Hearing Lu Zi's comforting words, Qin Chuan's mood became a little better, and he once again put his energy into training. Just as Qin Chuan and Lu Zi were running, a figure suddenly rushed over and blocked their path. "Qin Chuan, I want to duel with you." Looking at the indignant Jiang Feng, Qin Chuan could not help but be stunned for a moment. He asked in confusion, "Why do you want to duel with me?" "Cut the crap. I'm just asking you if you dare." Jiang Feng said to Qin Chuan angrily, "If you're a coward, you can also reject me like you rejected Qin Yan." Hearing Jiang Feng's words, Qin Chuan finally understood that Jiang Feng had come to him because of Diwu Qingyan. He sighed and said to Jiang Feng, "Don't do such a childish thing. It's meaningless." "Jiang Feng, what are you doing?" At this moment, Diwu Qingyan also rushed over. She seemed to have just cried, "Don't mess around. I'm very clear-headed. I'm not messing around." Jiang Feng said angrily, "I want to fight this guy. He's not worthy of being our friend." "If Qin Chuan isn't worthy of being your friend, then are you worthy of being Qin Chuan's friend?" Lu Zi could not help but say, "You're making things difficult for him." At this time, the quarrel here had attracted the attention of the surrounding people. Everyone looked over, curious about what had happened. After knowing the reason for Qin Chuan and Jiang Feng's quarrel, everyone looked at Diwu Qingyan with a playful gaze. Since ancient times, beautiful women were the source of trouble. This sentence was indeed true. "All right, little Z, don't argue with him about this. He won't listen to anything now." Qin Chuan stopped Lu Zi and then said to Jiang Feng, "It's fine if you want to duel with me. Let's duel with battle armor." When they heard that Qin Chuan wanted a duel with battle armor, the surrounding people were suddenly filled with anticipation for this duel. They all wanted to see how well Qin Chuan and Jiang Feng could perform under the circumstances of not being familiar with battle armor. At this time, Wang Wei also came over to join in the fun. "You want to duel with battle armor? I think it's quite interesting. Why don't I give you some prizes?" Wang Wei chuckled and said to Jiang Feng, "Jiang Feng, if you can defeat Qin Chuan, as long as you can provide the raw materials, then I'll let the special training camp's team tailor-make an exclusive battle armor for you." When they heard Wang Wei's words, the crowd suddenly burst into a burst of exclamations. Was that even possible? Jiang Feng was also stunned by Wang Wei's prize. Although he needed to provide the raw materials to customize the exclusive battle armor, what was really difficult was the manufacturing technique. "Instructor, I also want a duel." "Instructor, exclusive battle armor isn't important. What's important is that I want to experience the feeling of dueling with others." Wang Wei chuckled in the midst of the crowd's cheers and said to Qin Chuan, "Qin Chuan, if you can defeat Jiang Feng, then the exclusive battle armor custom-made for you will have a new set of wavy cross-sword set and a meteor star portable laser cannon." Whoa! Everyone could not help but cry out in surprise. Whether it was the wavy cross-blade set or the meteor star portable laser cannon, they were all the best weapons for individual combat. They could not be bought even with money. It was even more shocking than customizing an exclusive armor for Jiang Feng. When Wang Wei saw that the others were about to make a fuss again, he smiled and said to the crowd, "Don't make a fuss. Even if you want to duel now, it's too late. Who asked you not to be the first to challenge?" When the crowd heard Wang Wei's words, they felt a little regretful. If they knew that the duel would have such benefits, they would have fought long ago. However, through this incident, the crowd could also see that Wang Wei cared a lot about Qin Chuan. This was blatantly giving Qin Chuan benefits. After all, Qin Chuan's opponent was the unknown Jiang Feng. No one thought that Qin Chuan would lose. Come, Jiang Feng didn't beat around the bush. Whether it was to avenge Diwu Qingyan or for Wang Wei's prize, he had to defeat Qin Chuan. He had to win this duel fair and square. Qin Chuan looked at Jiang Feng, who was standing in front of him, and then glanced at Diwu Qingyan, who wanted to say something but stopped. He smiled gently and said to Jiang Feng, "Come, you can make the first move." Seeing that Qin Chuan was looking down on him, Jiang Feng immediately roared angrily. He raised his hand and threw a punch at Qin Chuan. The huge iron fist went straight for Qin Chuan's face. This was Jiang Feng's angry attack. If it hit Qin Chuan's face directly, it might directly defeat Qin Chuan. Whoosh! Qin Chuan dodged Jiang Feng's iron fist. At the same time, he stretched out his left leg and tripped Jiang Feng's foot. With a thud, Jiang Feng fell to the ground. Seeing this scene, everyone shook their heads. From Jiang Feng's performance, he was not Qin Chuan's opponent at all. Qin Chuan only took advantage of Jiang Feng's weakness of using too much strength and his unstable body to put Jiang Feng on the ground. If he got serious, wouldn't Jiang Feng not even have a chance to make a move? However, there were also people who understood that in a situation where both sides were not familiar with operating battle armor, the more strength one used, the easier it was to make mistakes. Instead of saying that Qin Chuan dealt with it well, it was more accurate to say that Qin Chuan made fewer mistakes. "Jiang Feng, that's enough." Diwu Qingyan looked at Jiang Feng, who had fallen to the ground, and said softly, "Don't continue." However, in the face of Diwu Qingyan's persuasion, Jiang Feng had no intention of stopping. Instead, he got up from the ground and threw another punch at Qin Chuan. Chapter 659. Facing Jiang Feng's fist once again, Qin Chuan did not choose to dodge. Instead, he raised both his hands to block. Bang! The powerful impact caused Qin Chuan's body to involuntarily retreat. He staggered and could not stand steadily. When Jiang Feng saw this, he immediately chased after Qin Chuan and threw another punch. Once again, he forced Qin Chuan to retreat. Qin Chuan's body seemed to be on the verge of collapsing, as if he could fall at any time. After seeing the possibility of winning, Jiang Feng roared excitedly and repeatedly punched Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan did not fight back. He could only try his best to dodge and block. However, after a few moves, he was completely suppressed by Jiang Feng and was on the verge of being defeated. Everyone was shocked when they saw the sudden turn of events. Qin Chuan was suppressed by Jiang Feng so easily. However, compared to the others, Lu Zi was much calmer. First of all, she absolutely did not believe that Qin Chuan would lose to Jiang Feng. Secondly, in her opinion, rather than saying that Qin Chuan was suppressed by Jiang Feng, it was more like Qin Chuan was doing it on purpose. This duel might be a real duel to Jiang Feng, but to Qin Chuan, it was more like training, helping him to fuse with the armor faster. Qin Chuan was not the only one who had such thoughts. Wang Wei also had such thoughts. As the person who understood Qin Chuan's training the most, Wang Wei absolutely did not believe that Qin Chuan would lose to an ordinary Jiang Feng. If Qin Chuan was really not Jiang Feng's match, then he should not be suppressed on the verge of defeat. He should have already lost. Everything was still under Qin Chuan's control. Just as Lu Zi and Wang Wei thought, Qin Chuan did not really use his full strength to fight against Jiang Feng. In Qin Chuan's opinion, compared to winning the duel, it was more important to fuse with the armor as soon as possible. He had never forgotten his purpose of coming here. Jealousy was not as important as becoming an exo. As Jiang Feng continued to attack, Qin Chuan's fusion with the armor also continued to improve. If he were to throw another punch, although he could not guarantee that he would be able to hit the required number, he would definitely not break the strength testing device. Qin Chuan's improvement was very fast, and the others had also noticed something different in the process. Jiang Feng's attacks were becoming more and more difficult. It was not because he had used up too much of his power, but because Qin Chuan's defense was becoming more and more thorough. Actual combat is always the best teacher. Wang Wei's voice suddenly rang in everyone's ears. When they heard this, the expressions on their faces became somewhat subtle. The way they looked at Qin Chuan also became somewhat complicated. This time, Qin Chuan was in front of everyone again. Just as this thought appeared in everyone's mind, Jiang Feng suddenly stopped attacking. He was not an idiot. At this time, he could also see that Qin Chuan had no intention of dueling with him at all. Instead, he was treating him as a sparring partner. Qin Chuan, if you have the guts, fight me fair and square. Facing Jiang Feng's angry roar, Qin Chuan could not help but sigh. He really did not understand what Jiang Feng wanted to do, but he would definitely give Jiang Feng a quick death so that Jiang Feng would stop bothering him too much. Whoosh! Qin Chuan made his move. His figure suddenly appeared next to Jiang Feng like a bolt of lightning. He grabbed Jiang Feng's shoulders with both his hands, and then violently threw Jiang Feng to the ground with a loud bang. Qin Chuan's sudden attack was beyond everyone's expectations. His powerful performance caused everyone to exclaim. Just from Qin Chuan's series of actions just now, it was hard to believe that this was the first time Qin Chuan fought with a battlesuit. When Wang Wei saw this scene, he chuckled and said to everyone, "From Qin Chuan's performance just now, his fusion with the iron armor battlesuit has reached at least 60%. If not, he would definitely not be able to perform such smooth movements." When everyone heard Wang Wei's words, they were a little surprised. Qin Chuan's performance was already so excellent, but his fusion with the armor was only 60%. Seeing everyone so surprised, Wang Wei smiled and said to everyone, "Do you think this is very good? To be honest, this is just the beginning." Just the beginning again. Everyone felt that ever since they came to the Tianhai Special Training Camp, they seemed to have turned from geniuses to rookies. They knew nothing and knew nothing. What was amazing in their eyes was just the beginning in Wang Wei's eyes. This gap was a great blow to everyone's mind and body. "All right, don't crowd around and watch. Go and train," Wang Wei said to everyone. "If you don't want to fall too far behind, you have to work harder." When everyone heard Wang Wei's words, they immediately scattered and began to find their own opponents to train with. On the other side, the battle between Qin Chuan and Jiang Feng had come to an end. Qin Chuan looked at Jiang Feng, who was lying on the ground, and sighed again. He said to Jiang Feng, "She doesn't like you, and she's not suitable for you. I don't mean anything by saying this. I just want to remind you that you came here to become an EXO, not to flirt with girls. You have to prioritize." "Haha, you think you're qualified to teach me?" Jiang Feng sneered. "You're a genius. You're great, but you're inhumane. You're heartless." Qin Chuan fell silent. From Jiang Feng's point of view, he was indeed heartless. He did not want to explain too much. Those who understood him would naturally understand his difficulties. Those who did not understand him would not understand him no matter how much he explained. Tap, tap, tap. Diwu Qingyan slowly walked over and helped Jiang Feng up from the ground. Then, she whispered to Jiang Feng, "Let's go." Jiang Feng did not leave immediately after hearing Diwu Qingyan's words. Instead, he continued to look at Qin Chuan. His voice was filled with grief and indignation. "Qingyan is indeed not suitable for me, and she doesn't like me. But she likes you. Why don't you help her?" "Jiang Feng," Diwu Qingyan shouted. "Stop talking." Qin Chuan saw that Jiang Feng and Diwu Qingyan's emotions were somewhat out of control. He did not want to continue talking to the two of them at this time, so he chose to turn around and leave. Looking at Qin Chuan's back as he left, Jiang Feng clenched his fists tightly in hatred. Qin Chuan returned to Lu Zi's side and said to Lu Zi, "Let's go. Let's find a place to spar." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lu Zi glanced at Diwu Qingyan and Jiang Feng not far away. Then, she asked Qin Chuan, "Did you feel it?" Qin Chuan nodded lightly and sighed. "I felt it." Seeing that Qin Chuan knew what he was doing, Lu Zi did not say anything else. Some things needed to be decided by Qin Chuan himself. Chapter 660. With the passage of time, everyone's training gradually got back on track. After nearly 10 days of training, even the worst of them could now pilot a battlesuit and fight smoothly. Occasionally, they could even perform some difficult maneuvers. If this was any other training camp, students of this level would have already reached the graduation standard. However, in the Tianhai Special Training Camp, this kind of performance was merely passing. It was at this time that Qin Xuan asked Wang Wei for a day off. Wang Wei didn't ask Qin Xuan the reason for his leave and happily approved it. This was because during this period of contact, he had already understood that Qin Xuan wasn't someone who would mess around. There must be something important that he had to do, so he chose to take a leave. Just as Wang Wei thought, Qin Xuan did indeed have something important to do. His Jindan Thunder Tribulation was coming. Qin Xuan's original plan was to wait until he graduated from the training camp before considering the Thunder Tribulation. However, his plan could not keep up with the changes. The Jindan Thunder Tribulation was coming faster than he expected. This forced him to ask for a day off and leave the training camp to find a quiet place to undergo the Thunder Tribulation. This Thunder Tribulation was very important to Qin Xuan. Other than Lu Zi, he did not tell anyone about it. After asking for a day off, Qin Xuan and Lu Zi immediately left the training camp and headed into the depths of the desert. After about 10,000 meters away from the training camp, Qin Xuan suddenly stopped. He looked around with a serious expression and said to Lu Zi, "We can't go any further." Lu Zi was surprised to hear that. "What's wrong?" "I feel that the Thunder Tribulation is coming soon." Qin Xuan looked up at the sky. The Thunder Tribulation has begun to gather. Hearing Qin Xuan's words, Lu Zi subconsciously looked up at the sky. Sure enough, there were already large amounts of dark clouds gathering above them, emitting a pressure that made one's heart feel heavy. But this place is too close to the training camp. It might attract unnecessary attention. Lu Zi anxiously looked behind her and said to Qin Xuan, "If they have bad intentions towards you, then you'll be in danger." Qin Xuan also knew that Lu Zi was right. Transcending tribulation here was indeed a very dangerous thing to do. But now that the arrow had already been knocked, he had no choice but to release it. "Let me try." At this time, Lu Zi's eyes suddenly glowed with a purple light, and the purple star divine eyes appeared above her head. Seeing this scene, Qin Xuan was shocked and hurriedly said, "Are you crazy? You will die if you try to hide from the heavens." LVZ nodded with a solemn expression. "I know that it's highly likely that I'll die if I try to hide from the heavens. I've never thought of hiding from the heavens. What I want to hide is the sight of the training camp." Just as Lu Zi was speaking, the purple star divine eyes had already begun to flicker, and a purple light curtain that covered the sky appeared behind them. Then, the light curtain slowly merged into the air and disappeared, as if nothing had happened. After doing all this, Lu Zi's face suddenly turned pale, and she was sweating profusely. She looked at Qin Xuan with a slightly tired gaze and forced a smile. "This is all I can do. The rest is up to you. Do your best. Go to the side and rest. Just quietly watch my performance." Qin Xuan helped Lu Zi to a sand dune in the distance and sat down. After confirming that Lu Zi was fine, he returned to his original place and prepared to undergo the tribulation. Qin Xuan raised his head and looked at the situation of the tribulation clouds gathering in the sky. He estimated that it would take at least an hour for the tribulation clouds to completely condense. Before that, he could recover his condition and adjust his essence, qi, and spirit to their peak. He would be in the best state to welcome the first lightning tribulation of his life. Sky Sea Training Camp. Two figures stood on the high walls of the training camp, looking through the huge transparent light curtain into the distance. He asked for leave and left the training camp with that woman. I know. They went northwest, deep in the desert. Why did he suddenly ask for leave? Did he have something important to do? I'm not sure. Maybe he's going to undergo a tribulation. He's been at Foundation Establishment for a long time. It can't be a tribulation. If he was going to undergo a tribulation, he wouldn't have just asked for a day's leave. If it happens suddenly, there should be tribulation clouds gathering. But the sky in the distance is clear. It doesn't look like tribulation clouds are gathering at all. You're right. Let's just wait and see. The conversation came to an end, and the two figures disappeared from the light screen. No one saw anything, and no one knew what they had been talking about. Rumble. Above the dark clouds, an azure bolt of lightning flashed, startling Qin Xuan, who was meditating with his eyes closed. He raised his eyes to look at the sky. As he looked at the dark clouds, the expression on his face gradually turned serious. The tribulation lightning was about to descend. Qin Chuan slowly stood up and looked up at the sky, quietly waiting for the first bolt of tribulation lightning to descend. He had done a lot of research on the Golden Core lightning tribulation. The Golden Core lightning tribulation was divided into 3, 6, and 9 levels. For those with average talent, the tribulation clouds would only send down 3 bolts of tribulation lightning. For those with excellent talent, the tribulation clouds would send down 6 bolts of tribulation lightning. For those with excellent talent, the tribulation clouds would send down 9 bolts of tribulation lightning. The more lightning strikes, the stronger it would be. The 9th level was the most terrifying. The slightest carelessness could lead to death. According to Qin Chuan's calculations, his tribulation lightning would be at least a 6th level. It might even be the extremely rare 9th level. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, the tribulation clouds sent down a bolt of tribulation lightning without warning. It fiercely bombarded the top of his head. The terrifying power of tribulation lightning instantly blasted the ground under Qin Chuan's feet. Sand and dust filled the sky as the power of tribulation lightning wreaked havoc. Seeing this scene, Lu Zi, who was sitting in the distance, subconsciously cried out. When she sensed that Qin Chuan's aura was still there, and it was still very strong, her nervous mood relaxed a little. Rumble. Another bolt of tribulation lightning struck down, directly above Qin Chuan's head. This bolt of tribulation lightning was stronger than the previous one, but still did not have any effect on Qin Chuan. However, before the power of tribulation lightning could dissipate, the 3rd bolt of tribulation lightning struck down. It actually struck down 3 bolts of tribulation lightning without stopping. It seems that Qin Chuan's tribulation lightning is really a 9th level tribulation. Thinking of this, Lu Zi could not help but start to worry about Qin Chuan. Being able to transcend a 9th level tribulation lightning meant that Qin Chuan's talent was amazing and his future was limitless. However, this also meant that Qin Chuan had to bear a huge risk. The slightest mistake could lead to death. How could you be happy about this? Chapter 661. Rumble. When the 5th lightning tribulation struck, the color of the lightning tribulation was no longer pure blue. Instead, it gradually turned into a faint purple. At this time, Qin Chuan's clothes were torn and a large part of his skin was exposed. His body was as smooth as jade and his aura was soaring. It was as if he could soar into the sky at any time. Qin Chuan raised his head to look at the darkening tribulation clouds in the sky, and the expression on his face gradually turned serious. The first 4 lightning tribulations didn't cause any damage to him, and only helped to increase his aura and strength. However, the 5th lightning tribulation just now had caused him quite a bit of damage. If it wasn't for the fact that he had the true intent of the Phoenix and the power of Nirvana, he might not have been able to maintain such a good condition. The next lightning tribulation is the real challenge. Buzz. Accompanied by a buzzing sound, another lightning tribulation struck from the dark tribulation clouds. This time, the lightning tribulation was pure purple. Rumble. The power of the thunder calamity, which was as thick as a water bucket, landed on Qin Chuan's body. An earth-shattering roar erupted. Qin Chuan's figure was almost instantly blasted into the ground and buried by sand and dust. The terrifying power of the 6th lightning tribulation almost instantly tore Qin Chuan's body apart. A large amount of blood gushed out. However, Qin Chuan's body erupted with an extremely strong vitality. In a breath, the injuries on Qin Chuan's body were healed, and Qin Chuan's body returned to its original state. Although the injuries could be healed, the pain could not be reduced. At this time, Qin Chuan, who was buried in the sand, could be said to be in pain all over his body. It went deep into his bones and touched his soul. Qin Chuan knew in his heart that this was the power of the lightning tribulation transforming his body and elevating his level of life. It was a training that he had to go through to enter the Golden Core realm. Phew! After a moment of rest, Qin Chuan slowly climbed out of the sand. He looked up at the tribulation clouds in the sky and gritted his teeth, waiting for the arrival of the 7th lightning tribulation. The 6 paths have already passed. Luzi looked worriedly at the tribulation clouds in the sky. At this time, the tribulation clouds were still dense, which meant that the thunder tribulation had not passed yet. Qin Chuan must be undergoing a 9th grade thunder tribulation. The next 3 thunder tribulations would be the real test for Qin Chuan. Lu Zi's gaze involuntarily shifted from the tribulation clouds in the sky to Qin Chuan. When she saw that Qin Chuan's body was unscathed, she relaxed a little. At this moment, the 7th lightning tribulation arrived. The dark purple power of the lightning tribulation descended from the sky and bombarded Qin Chuan's body like a star destroyer cannon. In an instant, everything within 1,000 meters of Qin Chuan was turned into nothingness. The dark purple power of the lightning tribulation swept out in all directions, erupting with an extremely shocking, destructive power. Even Lu Zi, who was far away from the tribulation clouds, was affected at this time. Her body was paralyzed by the power of the lightning tribulation. Her entire body was stiff and could not move. She could only look at the sea of lightning in front of her, trying to find Qin Chuan's figure. Roar! At this time, a blue figure jumped out of the sea of lightning and rushed into the sky. Seeing the blue thunder dragon roaring in the sky, Lu Zi could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. She murmured in a low voice, "It's good that he's fine. He's fine." Rumble. A violent rumble that shook the heavens and the earth resounded, and a thick dark purple bolt of tribulation, lightning, descended with a bang, directly striking Qin Chuan's body. The swimming azure lightning dragon immediately let out a miserable cry, and dragon scales and blood splattered in all directions. At the same time, its enormous body fiercely fell to the ground, erupting with an extremely oppressive sound. The terror of the 8th lightning tribulation far exceeded LVZ's expectations. Her eyes widened as she looked at the blue lightning dragon lying on the ground and wailing in pain. She couldn't help but exclaim, "Qin Chuan." 10 seconds ago, when the 7th lightning tribulation descended, Qin Chuan already felt a sense of crisis in his heart. He felt that if he resisted the 7th lightning tribulation with his human body, he might be seriously injured, and it was very likely that he would not be able to recover in a short time. So at the critical moment, he chose to transform into a blue thunder dragon and use his dragon body to resist the 7th lightning tribulation. Just as Qin Chuan expected, resisting the lightning tribulation with a dragon body was easier than resisting it with a human body. In terms of physical strength, the dragon body was far superior to the human body. After blocking the 7th lightning tribulation, Qin Chuan felt that he was getting closer and closer to the gold core stage. He was almost only 1 step away. He could not hold back his excitement and rushed into the sky. However, he never thought that the 8th lightning tribulation would come so fast and so strong. When the 8th lightning tribulation fell and hit Qin Chuan's mind was in a daze. The terrifying power almost destroyed his body in an instant and hit his soul fiercely, causing his soul to almost collapse and his consciousness to become blurred. Just as Qin Chuan's consciousness was about to completely fall into darkness, a shout full of worry and tension stabbed into his mind like a sharp thorn. Qin Chuan, hearing this incomparably familiar shout, Qin Chuan's eyes flashed with a touch of confusion. Who was calling him? "Qin Chuan, please don't die." Hearing this choked and hoarse shout, Qin Chuan's consciousness was completely awakened, and he finally realized what had just happened. "I was hit by the 8th lightning tribulation, and I almost died. It was Little Purple who was calling me. If it wasn't for Little Purple's shout, maybe I really would have died." After realizing all this, Qin Chuan suddenly roared to the sky and stubbornly climbed up from the ground. At the same time, the nirvana power that belonged to the true meaning of the phoenix began to surge out crazily. healing the wounds on his body. He was not dead yet. When she saw Qin Chuan climbing up from the ground and roaring with unwillingness, Lu Zi's heart that was about to jump out from her throat finally fell back down. She raised her hand to wipe off the tears on her face, and before she could put down her hand, the tribulation clouds in the sky let out a roar of thunder. Rumble. Lu Zi suddenly raised her head to look at the tribulation clouds in the sky. Looking at the tribulation clouds that were almost as black as ink, her heart that had just settled down jumped up again. How can it be so fast? This doesn't give Qin Chuan any chance to breathe. Lu Zi, who was nervous, didn't realize that her fingernails had already pierced deeply into her palms because of clenching her fists, and blood had already flowed down from her fingers. At this moment, all her attention was on Qin Chuan, attracted by the impending arrival of the 9th lightning tribulation. You must hold on, Qin Chuan. Chapter 662. Is it coming? Qin Chuan raised his head to look at the tribulation clouds in the sky. He could feel the terrifying pressure emanating from the tribulation clouds. His expression was extremely grave. As time passed, the pressure of the tribulation clouds in the sky became stronger and stronger, causing Qin Chuan to feel great pressure. When the power of the tribulation clouds turned into a thick black color, Qin Chuan's face completely changed. Before Qin Chuan could finish his words, his vision was filled with lightning. That was the ultimate black. Rumble. An earth-shattering sound of thunder rang out, causing everyone in the training ground to subconsciously stop what they were doing. Everything is fine. Where did the thunder come from? Some people looked up at the sky in confusion. Through the light screen, they could see that the sky outside was very clear and there were no dark clouds. Just as everyone was puzzled, Wang Wei suddenly rushed to the high wall outside the base. He looked solemnly in the northwest direction and looked at the gloomy sky in the distance. Someone is undergoing a tribulation. Wang Wei frowned. Could it be Qin Chuan? Thinking of Qin Chuan's request for leave today, Wang Wei couldn't help but worry. If this was really Qin Chuan's tribulation, then the pressure emitted by the tribulation clouds was too terrifying. Just as Wang Wei was thinking about these things, the others had already learned that someone was undergoing a tribulation 10,000 meters away from the training camp. Thinking of Qin Chuan and Lu Zi's request for leave today, it wasn't difficult for everyone to guess that the person undergoing a tribulation 10,000 meters away was most likely Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan is actually going to advance to the Golden Core stage? That's too fast. It's not fast. After all, Qin Chuan was already at the foundation establishment stage before entering the school. It's normal for him to undergo a tribulation now. I just don't know what level of tribulation Qin Chuan's tribulation will be. But the pressure of the tribulation lightning is too terrifying. We can feel it so clearly from 10,000 meters away. Just as everyone was discussing, no one noticed that two people in the crowd had extremely ugly expressions, as if they were regretting something. Cough, 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 cough. A series of low coughs sounded in the quiet desert. A dirty and battered figure crawled out from the sand. She looked at the empty desert in a daze. After a while, she recalled what had happened earlier. She could not help but reveal a look of horror on her face. Qin Chuan, Qin Chuan, Qin Chuan. Lu Zi crawled up from the ground in a panic. Looking around, all she could see was yellow sand. She couldn't see Qin Chuan's figure at all. Because the surroundings were filled with the power of tribulation lightning, she couldn't sense Qin Chuan's aura in this chaotic environment. Qin Chuan, where are you? Qin Chuan, answer me. Lu Zi quickly ran towards the place where Qin Chuan had undergone his tribulation. She looked at the flat ground and knelt down without hesitation to start digging. Lu Zi kept murmuring as she dug. Qin Chuan, please don't die. I beg you. After a short while, Lu Zi dug a deep hole in the ground. However, there was only sand in the deep hole. Qin Chuan was nowhere to be seen. Qin Chuan, where are you? LVZ started to cry in despair. She was unwilling to give up and dug deeper. She expanded the area, but still couldn't find Qin Chuan. This result made LVZ feel like she was about to break down. At this moment, a hand covered in sand stretched out from under LVZ's body. Seeing this hand, LVZ's sobbing stopped. After being stunned for a moment, she immediately began to dig at the sand under her body. Seeing that familiar figure being dug out from the sand, LVZ couldn't help but cry again. This time, she was crying tears of joy. Qingchuan lay on the ground and looked at Lu Zi, who was covering her face and crying. His gaze was focused on Lu Zi's hands that had turned dark red because of blood and sand. In his impression, Lu Zi's hands had always been white and delicate. This was the first time he saw Lu Zi's hands in such a sorry state, and it was all because of him. Don't cry. Qingchuan grinned when he saw Lu Zi crying nonstop. You don't look good anymore. Lu Zi suddenly bent down and hugged Qingchuan when she heard Qingchuan's words. She sobbed, I thought I would never see you again. Qingchuan smiled when he heard Lu Zi's tearful complaints. He reached out and gently stroked Lu Zi's messy hair. He whispered, I'm still alive. We're both still alive. Qingchuan slowly sat up and said to Lu Zi, Don't cry. We still have a long way to go. Before Qingchuan could finish his words, Lu Zi covered his mouth. Lu Zi's slightly sorry red lips covered his mouth. The taste of this gentle kiss was not good. There was the rough friction of sand and the salty taste of tears. However, for the two who had survived a disaster, it was very precious. When Qingchuan and Lu Zi returned to the training camp in a sorry state, no one laughed at them. This was because everyone could feel that Qingchuan's aura was different from before. He had successfully advanced to the Golden Core stage and became a Golden Core stage cultivator. Wang Wei looked at Qingchuan and smiled. Congratulations. From now on, we can call each other fellow Taoist. Qingchuan chuckled and said to Wang Wei, I still prefer to call you instructor. However, we can talk later. We need to wash up first. Wang Wei also knew that Qingchuan and Lu Zi were not suitable to continue chatting outside. He smiled and nodded. Then we'll talk after you've rested. Qingchuan nodded at Wang Wei and looked at the others. After greeting them, he and Lu Zi returned to their dormitory directly. After returning to the dormitory, Qingchuan and Lu Zi immediately cleaned the dirt on their bodies. Because he had successfully passed the lightning tribulation, Qingchuan did not feel tired at all. Instead, he was full of energy. On the other hand, Lu Zi needed a good rest because of her nervousness and other reasons. After seeing that Lu Zi had fallen asleep, Qingchuan quietly left the dormitory and went straight to Wang Wei's private training room. The moment he saw Wang Wei, Qingchuan curiously asked Wang Wei, Instructor, I always feel that the training methods you taught us are not specifically for driving battlesuits. They have a deeper meaning. Hearing Qingchuan's words, Wang Wei laughed and replied, I wanted to explain it to you. I didn't expect you to guess it yourself. Yes, the training methods I taught you have other uses. Chapter 663. The training methods Wang Wei taught Qingchuan and the others could not only make them excellent exos, but also give them a clearer understanding of themselves and a more comprehensive control of their own strength. As a result, their strength would become smoother and more refined than before, which was why Qingchuan's Golden Core Thunder Tribulation came earlier than he expected. You are already in the peak of the building foundation stage. After a period of training, your control of your own strength has reached a higher level. The peak of the building foundation stage is naturally no longer suitable for you, so the Thunder Tribulation came accordingly. Qingchuan took a deep look at Wang Wei and said, I just checked the information and found that 80% of the students in the Sky Sea training camp successfully reached the Golden Core stage not long after graduation. Combined with my own experience, I guess that the early arrival of the Thunder Tribulation must be due to the training methods. Wang Wei chuckled and said to Qingchuan, It's already very impressive of you to be able to guess this point. At least, of all the students I've taught, none of them have ever come to me to verify this point like you. Perhaps they all thought that the lightning tribulation came early because of their extraordinary talent. Anyway, I have to thank you, Drill Master. Qin Chuan looked at Wang Wei gratefully and said, "And I can feel that if it weren't for this period of training, I might not have the strength I have now after the Thunder Tribulation." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Wang Wei suddenly became interested in Qin Chuan's strength. He asked expectantly, "Are you interested in exchanging blows with me?" Qin Chuan's eyes lit up when he heard this. This was the first time Wang Wei showed Qin Chuan where he usually trained, a desert located in a space fragment. Wang Wei looked at the desert in front of him and said to Qin Chuan, "Once a cultivator reaches the golden core stage, his strength will increase exponentially. It is no longer suitable for fighting in ordinary places. Only in a place like the desert can you fight without restraint. When you fight later, you have to control the strength in your body well. Be careful not to use too much strength." Qin Chuan nodded and said to Wang Wei, "Don't worry, I know what to do." As the two of them spoke, they arrived at the desert. Wang Wei beckoned Qin Chuan with his finger. "Come, let me experience the skills of our Star Dragon Federation's younger generation's leading figure." Qin Chuan chuckled when he heard that and said to Wang Wei, "Then I'm coming." Before he finished speaking, Qin Chuan's figure had already disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already behind Wang Wei. He raised his hand and punched out. It was such a simple punch, but it seemed to have the power to destroy the heavens and earth. It emitted an extremely terrifying energy fluctuation. Bang! Wang Wei turned around and punched out as well. This punch didn't have any strong aura, but it easily blocked Qin Chuan's punch. Bang, bang, bang. Qin Chuan continuously punched out, and Wang Wei didn't stop blocking. The two of them exchanged blows, and in the blink of an eye, hundreds of punches had been thrown out. At this moment, the aura on Qin Chuan's body suddenly surged. His figure also increased by a lot. The aura on his body was as dazzling as the sun. Qin Chuan actually directly released his complete form. Seeing Qin Chuan release his complete form, Wang Wei's eyes lit up. However, he didn't intend to use his full strength. Although Qin Chuan's strength was strong, he was only at the early stage of the Golden Core stage. Moreover, his realm was still unstable. It was still very difficult for him to threaten him. Bang, bang, bang. This time, the power of each of Qin Chuan's punches was several times stronger than before. The leaked power set off a terrifying sandstorm in the desert. Walala! The sand fell from the sky, but not a single grain fell on Qin Chuan and Wang Wei. At this time, the two of them had finished their sparring. Qin Chuan had also released his complete form. He looked at Wang Wei in confusion and asked, "Why do I feel that something is wrong?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Wang Wei chuckled and asked, "What do you think is wrong?" Qin Chuan recalled the process of the battle and said to Wang Wei, "In terms of the release of power, you have to be more restrained, and I'm too wasteful." Yes, wasteful. Qin Chuan felt that wasteful was an appropriate adjective. He seemed to be very powerful during the battle, but in fact, most of his power was wasted and not completely used in the battle. On the other hand, Wang Wei completely used his own power in the battle, and there was almost no waste. The gap between the two was naturally reflected. Facing Qin Chuan's self-reflection, Wang Wei's eyes flashed with a touch of appreciation. He sighed and said, "If I had your talent back then, I would have been a Yuaniing cultivator by now." After sighing, Wang Wei continued, "You're right. You've indeed wasted too much energy in the battle just now. You weren't able to use all your energy in the battle. In the end, it's because you don't have enough control over your own energy. Originally, you could control your own power very well when you were in the foundation establishment stage, but after you advanced to the gold core stage, the power in your body increased explosively, so you have problems controlling your own power." Hearing Wang Wei's words, Qin Chuan slowly clenched his fists and said to Wang Wei, "I knew it. My control of my own power is far from strong enough. It's not perfect enough. It's still difficult to reach the perfect state. The road has to be taken step by step." Wang Wei looked at Qin Chuan and said to Qin Chuan, "And you still don't know enough about the fighting style of the Gold Core stage. Haven't you thought about flying?" Hearing Wang Wei's words, Qin Chuan couldn't help but be stunned. If it wasn't for Wang Wei's reminder, he would have forgotten that Gold Core stage cultivators can fly. Seeing Qin Chuan stunned, Wang Wei laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "Gold core stage cultivators can fly. This is a great advantage. Not only can it make your body more flexible, but it also makes your attacks more flexible. Just now, there were a few times when I wanted to fly, but I resisted. After all, you just advanced to the gold core stage, so you shouldn't be used to flying, right?" Qin Chuan was not only not used to flying, he had never relied on his own power to fly. Whoosh! Qin Chuan tried to let his feet leave the ground. With the surge of spiritual power, Qin Chuan felt his body become lighter and slowly floated up. This feeling of not touching the ground made Qin Chuan feel very fresh. Little by little, Qin Chuan's body rose into the air. He was at least 100 meters away from the ground. He looked at the ground under his feet and said excitedly, "Is this the feeling of flying?" Suddenly, Qin Chuan's face changed and his body fell to the ground unsteadily. Seeing this, Wang Wei couldn't help but laugh and whispered, "I forgot to remind him not to fly too high for the first time. He shouldn't die from this height, right?" Chapter 664. In the auditorium, Qin Chuan watched the two students fighting on the stage. Watching them maneuver their battle suits smoothly, his eyes were filled with reluctance. Their life in the training camp was about to come to an end. "Hey, it's your turn to go on stage soon. Do you have anything to say?" Lu Zi glanced at Qin Chuan. "You're the only Aura's core stage cultivator in our batch. Whoever is drawn to fight, you will definitely lose miserably." Hearing Lu Zi's words, Qin Chuan chuckled and replied, "Don't you know? I've already spoken to the instructor. You're the one who's going to fight me." Lu Zi was dumbfounded. Pointing at her own nose in disbelief, she asked, "Me?" Qin Chuan smiled and nodded. "That's right. It's you. Are you kidding me?" Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan suspiciously. "Why would you choose me as your opponent?" Qin Chuan playfully winked at Lu Zi. "It's a secret. You'll find out later." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lu Zi's curiosity was immediately piqued. She hurriedly asked, "What's the secret? Tell me." Faced with Lu Zi's curiosity, Qin Chuan kept his mouth shut. He smiled and said nothing. Seeing this, Lu Zi could only pinch Qin Chuan's arm to vent her anger. There was nothing she could do about Qin Chuan. Dong! A melodious bell rang, signaling the end of the battle. The two students on the stage had completed their graduation examination and had officially become qualified exos. Wang Wei stood on the stage and announced to the audience, "The next battle is between Qin Chuan and Lu Zi." After hearing Wang Wei's announcement, everyone subconsciously looked at Qin Chuan and Lu Zi. They did not expect that Qin Chuan and Lu Zi would fight in the final graduation examination. Perhaps the battle would be very interesting. Although she already knew the answer from Qin Chuan, Lu Zi could not help but glare at Qin Chuan when she heard Wang Wei call out their names. "It really is me. Come on, let's go on stage." Qin Chuan stood up and walked towards the stage. Lu Zi followed behind him and deliberately stretched out her leg to trip Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan calmly dodged, not wanting to play such childish games with Lu Zi. After the two of them went on stage, Wang Wei gave Qin Chuan a meaningful look. Then, he turned his gaze to the audience and said indifferently, "Before the battle begins, there is something more important to announce. Our Sky Sea training camp's custom-made battlesuit for Qin Chuan has been completed. It will be displayed on the stage before the battle begins." As soon as Wang Wei finished speaking, the audience gasped in surprise. No one had expected the battlesuit to be displayed before the battle. For a moment, the audience couldn't help but be curious about the battlesuit Sky Sea training camp had custom-made for Qin Chuan. They all wanted to see just what kind of battlesuit would be. Lu Zi, who was standing beside Qin Chuan, curled her lips at Qin Chuan. "This is the secret you were talking about, right?" What a blatant show-off. While Lu Zi was ridiculing Qin Chuan, the Sky Sea training camp staff moved a 2-meter-tall display case covered in red silk onto the stage. Wang Wei looked at Qin Chuan and chuckled. "Now, you can take off this silk and show everyone your battlesuit." Qin Chuan smiled and turned his gaze to Lu Zi. "Help me." Hearing Qin Chuan's request, Lu Zi rolled her eyes helplessly. This guy was too hateful. Not only did he want to show off his battlesuit to her, he also wanted her to personally take off the silk. This guy was simply inhumane. Lu Zi inwardly ridiculed Qin Chuan as she walked up to the display case. She looked at the silk in front of her, her heart filled with anticipation. She wanted to see just what kind of battlesuit Sky Sea training camp had custom-made for Qin Chuan. Voila! Lu Zi tore off the silk and immediately looked at the battlesuit in the display case. When she saw the appearance of the battlesuit, she couldn't help but freeze on the spot. Her entire body was dumbfounded. The crowd was similarly silent. Everyone's eyes were on the elegant and beautiful battlesuit. The luxurious and elegant purple theme, the smooth lines of the body, and the perfect posture. From the inside out, it exuded an intoxicating and dreamy aura. If battlesuits were divided into beauty and ugliness, then this battlesuit in front of everyone was absolutely devastatingly beautiful. However, why was the battlesuit Sky Sea training camp had custom-made for Qin Chuan so feminine? Just as everyone was puzzled, Qin Chuan slowly walked up to Lu Zi's side and asked with a smile, "Does it look good?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lu Zi seemed to wake up from a dream. She nodded in a daze. The battlesuit in front of her could no longer be described as beautiful. It was completely in line with her standards of beauty. Seeing Lu Zi nod, Qin Chuan asked again, "Do you like it?" Lu Zi nodded again without hesitation. She couldn't go against her heart and deny it. She really did like the battlesuit in front of her. She had fallen deeply in love with it from the first time she had seen it. Seeing Lu Zi's somewhat dazed expression, Qin Chuan smiled gently and said indifferently, "Since you like it, then I'll give it to you." Lu Zi subconsciously wanted to nod, but halfway through, she stopped. She was stunned for a moment, then turned to look at Qin Chuan. Somewhat astonished, she asked, "Give it to me?" Seeing Lu Zi's incredulous expression, Qin Chuan nodded lightly and smiled. "This was originally custom-made for you. This is the secret I mentioned just now. It's also a surprise for you." Boom! Following Qin Chuan's words, the crowd at the scene suddenly boiled over. Everyone was stunned by the surprise Qin Chuan gave Lu Zi. Lu Zi was completely dumbfounded. She had never thought that this battlesuit in front of her was actually custom-made for her by Qin Chuan. Lu Zi suddenly recalled Qin Chuan's bold action that evening. "That day, when you hugged me," Qin Chuan nodded again and smiled. "I did it to measure your figure. Otherwise, how could I create a cockpit that perfectly fits your figure?" Hearing Qin Chuan's affirmative answer, Lu Zi couldn't help but tear up. She glanced at the battlesuit beside her, then looked at Qin Chuan, and couldn't help but excitedly jump into Qin Chuan's arms. She was really frightened by this surprise. She really loved this surprise. Qin Chuan gently hugged Lu Zi's soft body. Feeling Lu Zi's excitement, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. Compared to the kindness of saving his life that day when Lu Zi called him back from the dark abyss, this surprise was really nothing. Chapter 665. Wang Wei looked at the agitated Lu Zi and sighed. "When Qin Chuan told me that he wanted to give you the opportunity to customize the battlesuit, I was very surprised. I checked his attitude again and finally confirmed that he wasn't being impulsive, nor was he joking. He really wanted to give this opportunity to you." While speaking, Wang Wei walked to the front of the battlesuit and said to everyone, "This battlesuit uses the best self-repairing fluid alloy type 2 in the entire Federation. It can repair minor injuries on its own. In other words, as long as this battlesuit isn't damaged, it can be restored to its original state within a certain period of time. According to our test results, when the damage is less than 10%, it only needs 1 day to completely recover. For every 5% increase in damage, the time required will increase by 1 day. When the damage exceeds 40%, the self-repairing function will fail and special repairs will be required." Everyone's faces were filled with amazement when they heard Wang Wei's words. On the other side, Wang Wei continued to introduce the superior functions of the battlesuit. Also, the main color of this battlesuit is purple. However, this isn't an ordinary coating, but an extremely rare purple dream sand coating unique to the Western Desert. Purple dream sand has the ability to confuse. After being modified by us, it has the ability to enhance the effects of illusions and conceal the user. It is very compatible with Lu Zi's illusions. Now, I'm going to introduce the most important part of this battlesuit, the energy reactor. The energy reactor used by this battlesuit is the most advanced kitting number 4 energy reactor in the entire Federation. It has the characteristics of high storage, low energy consumption, and ultra stability. Even if it is hit directly, it won't show any instability. If the energy reactor is about to explode, the battlesuit will automatically eject the energy reactor to ensure the safety of the exo. As for the weapons, other than the cross-wavy blade set and the Comet-class portable laser cannon, there are also 2 hand-fire cannons and a light energy sniper rifle. In addition, if this battlesuit is fully activated, it can reach a speed of 3,000 kilometers per hour. After hearing Wang Wei's detailed introduction of the battlesuit, everyone's feelings could no longer be described as envy. It was pure jealousy. Lu Zi was completely stunned by the superiority of this battlesuit. If she were to pilot this battlesuit, her strength would definitely increase by at least 10 times, or even more. Looking at the excited expression on Lu Zi's face, Wang Wei smiled and said, "Now it's time for you to name this battlesuit." Upon hearing Wang Wei's words, Lu Zi subconsciously turned to Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan smiled and gestured for Lu Zi to name the battle armor herself. After all, this battle armor already belonged to Lu Zi, so the naming rights naturally belonged to Lu Zi. Then let's call it love. Love? Someone on the stage teased with a smile. Let's be clear. Is it love or love for Qin? Hearing this person's words, the stage suddenly burst into laughter. Lu Zi blushed and whispered, "You can say whatever you want. Anyway, it's my love account." In the audience, Jiang Feng looked at Qin Chuan and Lu Zi standing on the stage with a complicated gaze. He didn't know if what he said to Qin Chuan before gave Qin Chuan inspiration, so Qin Chuan gave his battlesuit to Lu Zi. However, he knew very well that Diwu Qingyan, who was sitting next to him, must be very disappointed. Diwu Qingyan's face did not have any special expression at this time. It was even a little cold, as if the matter in front of her could not affect her emotions at all. If you're sad, just show it. There's no need to hold it in. Why should I be sad? Jiang Feng sighed and said to Diwu Qingyan, "I know you. You have truly fallen for him." "You don't." Diwu Qingyan pursed her lips. "No one has the right to say that they understand me, no matter who he is." "All right, pretend I didn't say anything." Jiang Feng changed the topic and asked, "We're about to graduate. What do you plan to do next?" "Naturally, I'm going to do what I should do." Diwu Qingyan replied calmly. "You should also do what you should do." Jiang Feng sighed again, but did not say anything else. Qin Chuan sat on the sofa and looked at Lu Zi, who was walking around in the living room. He said helplessly, "Brother, when do you plan to come out of the battlesuit?" "Qin Chuan, this feeling is great. Do you know?" Lu Zi said to Qin Chuan excitedly. "I feel like I've merged perfectly with the love account. There's no gap." Qin Chuan had a headache when he heard this. "So, when do you plan to come out?" 6 hours had passed since the afternoon. Lu Zi had stayed in the battlesuit for 6 hours and had no intention of coming out. Qin Chuan could understand Lu Zi's excitement, but wasn't this too much? "I don't want to go out," Lu Zi replied. "I want to stay in here forever." Qin Chuan could not help but roll his eyes when he heard this. He complained helplessly, "You don't plan to come out even if you're going to sleep tonight? We're leaving the training camp tomorrow and returning to Shisha City. You don't plan to leave the battlesuit?" Whoosh! Crack! The cockpit of the love account slowly opened. Lu Zi, wearing a tight combat suit, walked out. She looked at Qin Chuan with sparkling eyes and said to Qin Chuan, "But when I think about how this is a surprise you gave me, I don't want to leave it at all." Qin Chuan smiled when he heard this and replied, "Then I won't dare to give you any gifts in the future. Wouldn't it be troublesome if you carry all the gifts with you?" "You dare." Lu Zi rolled her eyes at Qin Chuan. She took out the mechanical box and put the battle suit into her storage ring. Then, she walked to Qinchuan's side and sat down. She said to Qinchuan, "Time flies. You're already in the golden core stage, and I'm about to break through to the golden core stage." Qinchuan nodded when he heard Lu Zi's words. He sighed and said, "Time does fly. When we met 2 years ago, we were all only in the qi refining stage." Lu Zi nodded and said to Qinchuan, "Yes, we've known each other for 2 years." Lu Zi suddenly turned to face Qinchuan and said in a complicated tone, "It's been 2 years, and I still haven't won you over. Is it because my charm isn't good enough? Or is it because your character is too good?" Qinchuan smiled when he heard this. "I treat you as a brother, but you want to sleep with me?" Lu Zi looked at Qinchuan with a subtle gaze and said with a smile, "I'm not the only one who wants to sleep with you." Qinchuan. Chapter 666. On the flying ship heading to West Sand City, Qinchuan was sitting in the hall, admiring the scenery outside the porthole. Suddenly, a figure walked to his side and handed him a glass of fruit juice. "Congratulations on advancing to the golden core stage and graduating as an EXO. Double happiness." Looking at Diwu Qingyan sitting opposite him, Qinchuan smiled and replied, "Thank you." Diwu Qingyan looked at Qinchuan with a subtle gaze and said softly, "I should also congratulate Lu Zi. She will definitely like the surprise you gave her." Qinchuan smiled. "She really likes that battle armor." Diwu Qingyan looked at Qinchuan curiously and asked, "You are already at the golden core stage. Haven't you thought about customizing a battle armor for yourself? You gave such a good opportunity to Lu Zi just like that. Don't you have any hesitation in your heart?" Only about 30% of golden core stage cultivators have battle armors, and only 5% of them have exclusive battle armors. I have just entered the golden core stage, so I am not in a hurry. Qinchuan smiled and answered Diwu Qingyan's question. He did not tell Diwu Qingyan the truth. Even Lu Zi did not know that he already had an even stronger and better battle armor. Hearing Qinchuan's answer, Diwu Qingyan looked at him faintly and asked, "Are you preparing to return to school?" "Yes." Qinchuan nodded. "I have not seen teacher for a long time. I miss her very much." Clang! At this moment, the flying ship that was moving forward at a constant speed suddenly shook violently. At the same time, a broadcast sounded in the hall. "Dear passengers, please take note. This flight has been attacked by desert bandits. Please stay in your seats and do not move around to avoid any accidents." Hearing this broadcast, Qinchuan could not help but be stunned. They had actually encountered desert bandits. Desert bandits were the bandits of the Western Desert. Because they had always been hiding in the Western Desert, they were called desert bandits. Most of the desert bandits were fugitives who had committed serious crimes in the Federation, as well as some evil cultivators who had committed all sorts of crimes. They would often harass the Western Sand City and occasionally rob flying ships that were passing by. Generally speaking, in such situations, as long as the desert bandits were given a certain amount of benefits, they would let them go. There would not be too much conflict. This time, Qinchuan thought that the desert bandits would only ask for some benefits, but he underestimated the greed of the desert bandits. Rumble. The cabin door of the flying ship was brutally opened from the outside, startling the staff member who was about to open the door to deliver the benefits. Looking at the desert bandits who were full of hostility, the staff member trembled as he handed a spiritual value card to the desert bandits. This is, before the staff member could finish speaking, the desert bandit had already violently snatched the spiritual value card away. Then, he grabbed the staff member's collar and said coldly, "I heard that there is a student who has just graduated from the Sky Sea training camp on this flight. She has an exclusive battle armor. Is that right?" Facing the question of the desert bandit, the staff member shook his head in panic and said, "I don't know, I really don't know." Seeing the staff member's performance, the desert bandit snorted and pushed the staff member to the ground. He cursed, "What a piece of trash." As he said that, he turned around and said to the people behind him, "Let's go and find that girl." Qinchuan frowned as he looked in the direction of the corridor. He said in a deep voice, Something is wrong. Diwu Qingyan was slightly stunned when she heard that. She asked in confusion, "What's the problem? I could sense a few powerful auras. They should be desert bandits." Qingchuan's expression was slightly serious as he said, "They have entered the flying ship and are heading this way." Before Qingchuan's voice fell, a few tall and powerful figures walked out of the corridor and appeared in the hall. These people were full of hostility, and their faces were ferocious. It was obvious that they were not good people. After seeing these people's figures, the guests in the hall immediately cried out in a low voice. Their faces revealed a hint of panic. "Hee hee, don't be afraid. I'm not here for you." The leader of the desert bandits laughed. "Let me introduce myself first. My name is Chang Sha, a small leader of the desert bandits in the west. I'm here today to find a person. As long as we find her, we will leave immediately. We will definitely not hurt you." After hearing Chang Sha's words, the panicked crowd quietly heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the desert bandits were not here for them, it was fine. As for who the desert bandits were looking for, it was none of their business. "I heard that there is a graduate from the Sky Sea training camp on this flying ship. I think her name is Lu Zi. I really want to see what her exclusive battle armor looks like. I wonder if she is in the hall." After hearing Chang Sha's words, Qingchuan's expression suddenly changed. He did not expect these desert bandits to be here for Lu Zi. Chang Sha saw that no one spoke and could not help but sneer. He said to the crowd, "None of you know where she is? If no one knows, then I will search your bodies. When the time comes, don't blame me for not showing mercy." "We really don't know where that Lu Zi is." A passenger could not help but exclaim, "We really don't know her. They are graduates from the Sky Sea training camp. They must know where that Lu Zi is." At this moment, someone suddenly jumped out and pointed at Qingchuan and Diwu Qingyan, diverting the attention of the desert bandits to Qingchuan and Diwu Qingyan. The moment they saw Diwu Qingyan, the eyes of the desert bandits instantly lit up. "Ayo, what a beautiful young lady." Chang Sha stared at Diwu Qingyan greedily. He had lived for more than 100 years, but this was the first time he had seen such a beautiful woman. A desert bandit standing beside Chang Sha chuckled and suggested to Chang Sha, "Boss, let's tie her up and bring her back to the boss. Maybe the boss will reward you with a sandstorm when he is in a good mood." Chang Sha could not help but frown slightly when he heard his companion's words. It was not easy for him to meet such a beautiful woman. Wouldn't it be a pity if he could not enjoy her? However, when he thought of the sandstorm that he had been longing for a long time, his furrowed brows relaxed. There were many beautiful women in this world, but the chances of getting the sandstorm were few and far between. Not to mention, he had so many competitors. Once he had the sandstorm, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. By then, he could have as many women as he wanted. "Tie her up for me first. Be careful, don't hurt her." At Chang Sha's command, his subordinates walked towards Diwu Qingyan with sinister smiles on their faces. Although they could not fully enjoy the beauty in front of them, it was not a problem for them to take advantage of her. As for Qingchuan, who was sitting opposite Diwu Qingyan, they had long forgotten about him. Chapter 667. Diwu Qingyan looked at the desert bandits walking towards her, and her expression changed slightly. She said to Qingchuan, "You should leave. Their target is me." Hearing Diwu Qingyan's words, Qingchuan sighed helplessly and said, "If we didn't know each other, maybe I would really leave. To be honest, I don't like to be a hero because heroes usually don't have a good ending." Qingchuan stood up as he spoke. He said to the desert bandits, "Aren't you looking for Lu Zi? Come with me, I know where she is." Qingchuan suddenly stood up, which was out of everyone's expectations. The desert bandits also stopped moving forward and looked at Chang Sha behind them, wanting to see Chang Sha's intention. Chang Sha glanced at Qingchuan and sneered, "Are you trying to be a hero and save the beauty? Don't be in a hurry to find Lu Zi. It won't be too late to go find Lu Zi after we kidnap this beauty first." In Chang Sha's opinion, Qingchuan wanted to use Lu Zi as an excuse to lure them away so that Diwu Qingyan could escape. He had seen this kind of hero saving the beauty too many times over the years, but unfortunately, no one had succeeded. Hearing Changsha's words, Qinchuan couldn't help but sigh. He said to Changsha somewhat helplessly, "Why can't you take other people's advice? What good will it do you to be disobedient?" When Changsha heard Qinchuan's words, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. When he regained his senses, Qinchuan's figure had already appeared in front of him like a ghost. In the next moment, a terrifying force exploded in his abdomen, knocking his entire body backwards. Bang! Changsha slammed into the wall of the flying ship, creating a human-shaped hole in the hard wall. Almost at the same time, Qinchuan's figure appeared in front of him again, raising his hand and punching. Bang! Qinchuan's second punch completely embedded Changsha into the wall. He opened his mouth and coughed out a large mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale. He stared at Qinchuan with his eyes wide open, but no words came out of his mouth. Everyone in the hall was stunned by the scene in front of them. No one expected Qinchuan to be so violent. He attacked just because of a disagreement. He was even more violent than a desert bandit. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Qinchuan stared coldly at Changsha and said in a cold tone, "Did you become a desert bandit? Are you this arrogant no matter who you see?" In the face of Qinchuan's ridicule, Changsha was furious, but the sharp pain in his body made him unable to do anything. He could only stare at Qinchuan, expressing his anger to Qinchuan with his eyes. At this time, the other desert bandits had also reacted. They all roared and rushed toward Qinchuan. However, at this moment, Qinchuan's body suddenly lit up with blue thunder. With a burst of electric sizzling sound, all the desert bandits were connected by Qinchuan's thunder power. The violent power immediately made all the desert bandits lose their ability to resist, and they fell to the ground with a wail. From the moment Qinchuan made his move to the moment all the desert bandits fell to the ground, all of this happened in a short span of 10 seconds. This caused everyone in the hall to once again fall into a state of sluggishness. No one had expected Qinchuan's strength to be so terrifying that he could instantly kill these murderous desert bandits with just a raise of his hand. When he saw that all his companions had been knocked down by Qinchuan, Changsha also realized that he had provoked a tough nut this time. He stared at Qinchuan fiercely and said in a weak voice, We are the desert bandits of the western region. Aren't you afraid of provoking our boss's anger by doing this?" Qinchuan sneered and asked, "Then I'd like to know the origin of your boss. Have you heard of the title of the Butcher of the Desert, Shi Cheng?" Changsha threatened Qinchuan. "Our boss, Shi Cheng, is an expert of the exceptional Gold Core realm. In the Western Desert, if a nascent soul realm cultivator did not come out of the desert, the Butcher was a god. No one dared to provoke him." "You're using your boss to threaten me?" Qinchuan smiled disdainfully. "Then do you know who I am?" Seeing Qinchuan's fearless appearance, Changsha's heart could not help but thump. Could it be that this kid had some incredible background? Seeing that Changsha did not speak, Qinchuan sneered and said, "My name is Qinchuan, a student of the Black Moon Combat Academy. Have you heard of the MVP of the 6 Great Academies ranking competition? Recently, the most famous new nascent soul realm cultivator in the Federation, Ningya, is my teacher. What's so great about your boss being an exceptional Gold Core realm cultivator?" In the past, Qinchuan did not have much of a background, but now, he was not afraid of anyone. After hearing Qinchuan's words, Changsha's expression suddenly became interesting. Of course, he had heard of Qinchuan's name, and he also knew that Ningya had recently advanced to the nascent soul realm. If Qinchuan was not lying, then he really could not afford to offend Qinchuan. Even their boss would have to be polite to Qinchuan. Misunderstanding. This is all a misunderstanding. After learning of Qinchuan's identity and background, Changsha immediately changed his expression and became as friendly as possible. Originally, Qinchuan disdained using his identity and background to intimidate others, but now he had some questions to ask Changsha. In order to prevent Changsha from lying, He had no choice but to use his identity and background to intimidate Changsha. Qin looked deeply at Changsha and said in a deep voice, "I'm too lazy to kill you, but I have a few questions. If you answer them, you can leave with your companions. Otherwise, none of you can leave today. Do you understand?" After hearing Qin words, Changsha immediately replied, "Mr. Qin, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll definitely answer to your satisfaction." Qin coldly snorted and asked, "How did you know that Lu Zi has an exclusive battle armor?" Changsha immediately replied, "Someone told us this information. That's how we found out. He also told us your flight route and time." Hearing Changsha's answer, Qin's face couldn't help but show an as expected expression. He knew that these desert bandits would suddenly appear here because someone deliberately set him up. They wanted to use Lu Zi to deal with him indirectly. Who was that person? I don't know. That person didn't show up. He sent the information to us by mail. I once checked the sender's information, but I couldn't find anything. Hearing Changsha's answer, Qin couldn't help but frown and said coldly, "No information at all?" Changsha saw Qin's dissatisfaction and immediately said, "Yes, yes, yes. The person who told us the information should be on this airship." Qin's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard this. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Changsha nodded vigorously. He said in the information that he would help us if necessary. If he's not on the airship, how can he help us? Chapter 668. Changsha's words were reasonable, and Qin had no reason to doubt him. Moreover, he didn't believe that Changsha had the guts to lie to him. "Did that person leave you any secret signal?" Qin looked at Changsha. "Answer me honestly." Changsha shook his head and said, "He didn't leave anything, really. I've told you everything I know. That's all I know." Qin took a deep look at Changsha and said, "Don't make a fuss about what I asked you. Go to the side with your companions first. I'll let you go later." Hearing Qin's words, Changsha immediately said gratefully, "Thank you, Mr. Qin." "Thank you, Mr. Qin." Qin let go of Changsha and said to everyone in the hall, "The crisis has been resolved. Everyone is safe now." Everyone was pleasantly surprised when they heard Qin's words. However, there was one exception, and that was the passenger who betrayed Qin and Diwu Qingyan. He betrayed Qin, but Qin saved him. He felt very ashamed at his heart. However, Qin wasn't in the mood to care about him. Qin had seen many timid and selfish people like him. If he cared about every one of them, then Qin wouldn't need to do anything else. "Are you okay?" Diwu Qingyan walked to Qin's side and looked at Qin with a worried gaze. Qin smiled slightly and said to Diwu Qingyan, "Do I look like I'm not okay? I was overthinking. I thought these desert bandits would be very strong, but I didn't expect them to be no match for you at all." Diwu Qingyan exclaimed, "They are all in the Golden Core realm, but they couldn't even take one move from you. You are really too powerful." Qin chuckled and replied, "After all, they are just desert bandits. If I can't even deal with them, then I'm too useless." Although Qin was only in the early stage of the Golden Core realm, he was still someone who had passed the 9th grade lightning tribulation. Although Changsha and the others were also Golden Core cultivators, they had barely passed the 3rd grade lightning tribulation. They couldn't be compared to Qin at all. If Qin went all out, it wouldn't be difficult for him to defeat them. Diwu Qingyan suddenly asked curiously, "All right, I saw you talking a lot with that desert bandit just now. What were you guys talking about?" Qin's gaze moved slightly, and he replied with a smile, "He just told me that his boss was the desert butcher, Shi Cheng. He wanted to threaten me so that I wouldn't dare to touch him. However, when I told him that my master was a nascent soul cultivator, he was scared and kept begging me for mercy. I couldn't even be bothered to kill him." Hearing Qin's reply, Diwu Qingyan pursed her lips and said, "I don't know about that Shi Cheng, but if he isn't a nascent soul cultivator, then he definitely wouldn't dare to offend you. It seems like today's matter has been resolved satisfactorily. We should be safe now." Qin nodded and said, "We are indeed safe. However, I have to go and see Lucy first. She was resting in her bedroom earlier. I don't know how she is now. After saying this, Qingchuan walked towards the bedroom area of the flying ship. Diwu Qingyan looked at Qingchuan's departing figure, and her gaze couldn't help but become extremely complicated. When Qingchuan entered the bedroom, Lu Zi had just woken up. She looked at Qingchuan, who walked in, and asked weakly, "What happened outside just now?" Qingchuan sat by the bed and glanced at Lu Zi's pale face. He pursed his lips and said, "I finally know why you suddenly fell sick." Lu Zi was slightly stunned when she heard this and asked, "What do you mean?" "Someone wants to make a move on me, so they deliberately made you sick. They want to use you to restrain me." As he spoke, Qingchuan's gaze gradually became sharp and cold. He originally thought that Lu Zi's sudden illness was an accident, but he didn't expect that it was deliberately done by someone. Hearing Qingchuan's words, Lu Zi whispered, "No wonder a cultivator like me would fall sick. It turns out that someone wanted to harm me and use me to deal with you." Qingchuan looked at Lu Zi guiltily and said, "I'm sorry, I implicated you again this time." "Don't say that." Lu Zi held Qingchuan's hand and asked, "Have you found out who wants to harm you?" Qingchuan shook his head and said, "I don't know who it is for the time being, but I already have a vague answer in my heart." Hearing Qingchuan's words, Lu Zi couldn't help but hold Qingchuan's hand tightly and whispered, "It's them, right?" "I don't know." Qingchuan shook his head again. "They didn't do anything to us before, and I've always been patient. If I find evidence that they really did it, I won't be merciful. If those people wanted to harm him, they could do it openly. However, if those people wanted to harm the people around him, he would definitely not allow it." Bang! The tall and skinny youth slammed into the wall with a loud bang. "Were you the one who leaked the information to those desert bandits?" Facing the question, the tall and skinny youth was silent for a moment before answering. "Don't you already know the answer? Why do you need to ask me again?" Slap! An extremely crisp slap sounded, and the tall and skinny youth's cheeks quickly swelled up. He didn't resist, nor did he use his spirit energy to reduce the swelling, allowing the other party to vent his anger. "You must be crazy. Why are you doing this? I've clearly told you not to act recklessly. Are you sure that the crazy person is me?" The tall and skinny youth chuckled. "Diwu Qingyan, he won't like you. Don't waste your energy." Diwu Qingyan. That's right. The person who was questioning the tall and skinny youth was Diwu Qingyan, and the tall and skinny youth's identity was Diwu Qingyan's suitor, Jiangfeng. "Jiangfeng, what do you want?" Diwu Qingyan looked at Jiangfeng with disappointment. "You'll get us killed by doing this. I think you're the one who wants to get us killed, right?" Jiangfeng chuckled. "Our mission is to get close to Qingchuan, and then use Qingchuan to do that thing, not for you to date Qingchuan. Are you crazy to fall in love with him?" Hearing Jiangfeng's words, Diwu Qingyan said angrily, "I'm not." "You're not?" Jiangfeng sneered. "Then do you dare to tell Qingchuan that you're actually not this beautiful, and that your face was made with a polymorph pill?" Jiangfeng's words were like a sharp sword piercing into Diwu Qingyan's heart, causing her face to instantly turn pale. She looked at Jiangfeng with fear in her eyes as she shook her head and said, "No, you can't do that. Now you're still saying that you're not in love with him?" Jiangfeng looked at Diwu Qingyan's panicked expression, and a sickly smile appeared on his face. "Diwu Qingyan, wake up. Qingchuan will never like you. Even if you have the most beautiful face in the world, it's useless. It's better to destroy what you can't get." Chapter 669. After some maintenance, the flying ship was able to set sail again. During this period of time, the desert bandits were unwilling to be captured by Qingchuan, so they took the opportunity to escape from the flying ship. Because they were about to set off, Qingchuan did not choose to pursue them. Instead, he allowed the desert bandits to escape. No one felt that there was anything wrong with this. After all, the person who defeated the desert bandits was Qingchuan. Whether or not to pursue the desert bandits was Qingchuan's business. They had no right to criticize Qingchuan. After learning about the desert bandits' escape, Diwu Qingyan said to Qingchuan with some regret, "It's a pity that those desert bandits escaped. Otherwise, we might be able to interrogate them and find out who betrayed Lu Zi. Hearing Diwu Qingyin's words, Qin Chuan looked at her with a subtle gaze and asked, "Do you really think so?" Diwu Qingyin nodded and replied with a slightly complicated tone, "If I don't think so, why would I say so? Although my relationship with Lu Zi is a little complicated, I don't want anything to happen to her." Qin Chuan did not seem to understand the meaning behind Diwu Qingyin's words and replied faintly, "I'll go back and take care of little Zi first." Seeing that Qin Chuan was about to leave again, Diwu Qingyin said to Qin Chuan, "Say hello to little Zi for me." "I will." Qin Chuan did not even turn his head. Diwu Qingyin looked at Qin Chuan's back as he left calmly, and her gaze could not help but become a little sad. After the small episode of encountering the desert bandits, the flying ship returned to West Sand City unimpeded. Hui Tong, who had already received Qin Chuan's message, was waiting outside the aviation base. Hui Tong looked at Qin Chuan, who was carrying Lu Zi, walking over. His gaze was focused on Lu Zi's body. After a moment of observation, he said to Qin Chuan, "She's poisoned." Hearing Hui Tong's words, Qin Chuan pursed his lips and asked, "Is there a way to cure the poison?" Hui Tong nodded and said, "I can cure this poison. This is not a troublesome matter. But how did she get poisoned?" Qin Chuan looked down at Lu Zi, who was sleeping in his arms, and said in a low voice, "It's a long story. Let's go back to the hotel first and talk about it later." Just as Qin Chuan and Hui Tong were about to leave the aviation base and return to the hotel, Diwu Qingyin and Zhang Feng also walked out of the aviation base and came to their side. "Qin Chuan, how is Lu Zi doing?" Zhang Feng looked at Lu Zi, who was in a bad state, and sighed. "We cultivators don't get sick easily. Once we do, it must be a serious illness. You have to take good care of Lu Zi. Don't let anything happen to her." Facing Zhang Feng's friendly reminder, Qin Chuan nodded and said, "Thank you for your reminder. We'll meet again if fate wills it." With that, Qin Chuan turned around and left with Hui Tong. Diwu Qingyin and Zhang Feng stood where they were and watched them leave. "Don't you plan to say goodbye to him?" Zhang Feng looked at Qin Chuan's back and whispered to Diwu Qingyin, "Perhaps this is the last time you two will see each other in this life." Hearing this, Diwu Qingyin looked at Zhang Feng with a complicated gaze and asked, "What did you do behind my back?" "Nothing." Zhang Feng smiled. "The middle-aged man beside him is that nascent soul cultivator, right? I don't dare to provoke such a terrifying existence." Seeing that Zhang Feng said it so casually, Diwu Qingyin felt that there was something wrong with Zhang Feng. She looked at Zhang Feng coldly and said in a low voice, "You'd better not do anything rash. Otherwise, I won't let you go." With that, Diwu Qingyin walked out directly. She had no intention of waiting for Zhang Feng to go with her. Zhang Feng stood there alone and watched as Diwu Qingyin left. He watched as Qin Chuan left. "Diwu Qingyin, I hope you don't do anything stupid." After sitting on the flying shuttle to the Shisha Hotel, Hui Tong said to Qin Chuan, "There's something wrong with those two people." Qin Chuan's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He asked, "What's wrong with them?" "Their emotions are not right." Hui Tong said to Qin Chuan, "It's very difficult for people with lower realms to hide their emotions and intentions in front of nascent soul cultivators. Those two people seem to be concerned about Lu Zi, but in reality, they are hiding murderous intentions. They have bad intentions." Qin Chuan pursed his lips when he heard this. He asked, "Who are you talking about?" "I'm talking about that boy. As for that woman, she's also in a strange state." Hui Tong said, "She's very conflicted and hesitant." When he heard Hui Tong's answer, Qin Chuan smiled gently and said to Hui Tong, "I wasn't sure at first, but now I'm sure that little Zi's poison was planted by that boy. His name is Zhang Feng, and he's my classmate in the training camp. However, his purpose in the training camp is not to become an exo, but to get close to me." When Hui Tong heard this, he looked deeply at Qin Chuan and asked, "Can I make a move?" Qin Chuan shook his head and said to Hui Tong, "They are obviously just small fries. They are not the mastermind. I want to keep them alive and use them to fish out the mastermind. Otherwise, even if I kill them, it will be useless. In the future, there will still be people who will continue to harm me and the people around me. When he heard Qinchuan's words, Huitong did not insist on making a move immediately. Whether it was Jiang Feng or Diwu Qingyin, he could kill them at will. Compared to killing these two ants, it was more important to find the mastermind behind these two ants. If he could kill them all at once, there was no need to do it twice. After returning to the hotel, Huitong slowly transferred his shifter power into Lu Zi's body. After a while, the shifter power was expelled from Lu Zi's body. The gray color had turned into a pure black color, and it looked extremely strange. This poison is very corrosive. It can slowly destroy the human body bit by bit, causing people to become weak unknowingly until they die. Fortunately, you came back early. If you came back a few days later, her life might be in danger. When he heard Huitong's words, Qinchuan could not help but look at the wisp of black shifter power in the air. His eyes suddenly became sharp, and he said in a low voice, "They want to kill little Z." No, judging from the timing of the poisoning, the other party probably knew that you would be returning to Western Sand City soon to meet up with me. They're testing me. Huitong looked at Qinchuan meaningfully and said, "They know that I am by your side, but they are not sure of my strength." When Qinchuan heard this, he frowned slightly and asked, "You mean that this poison can only be cured by a nascent soul realm cultivator?" Huitong nodded and said, "This poison is very special. It can only be cured by someone at the early stage of the nascent soul realm." "I understand." Qinchuan looked deeply at Lu Zi, whose face was gradually becoming rosy, and said to Huitong, "Senior, please inform the hotel staff that I want to seek medical treatment. Ask them to introduce us to the best doctor in Shisha City." After he finished speaking, Qinchuan stretched out his hand and gently stroked LVZ's face, and he said softly, "I'll take revenge for you very soon." Chapter 670. In a small tavern in West Sand City, two people sat across from each other. Qinchuan has been seeking medical treatment everywhere for Lu Zi, but no doctor can tell what illness Lu Zi has. Didn't they say he has a nascent soul cultivator by his side? It's probably fake. Otherwise, Qinchuan wouldn't be seeking medical treatment everywhere. But even if it's real, it's at most an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. Whether it's early stage or not, it's not something we can deal with. It's better to be cautious. What do you plan to do? Follow the original plan and get Xingming to do it. The conversation ended here. The two put down their wine glasses and walked out of the tavern one after the other, as if they were strangers who didn't know each other. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the crowd. West Sand Hotel. Qinchuan's expression was gloomy as he looked at the bitter hotel staff. He coldly snorted and said, "Is this all that your Shisha hotel can do? The 3 doctors you hired for me are all quacks." Faced with Qinchuan's reprimand, the hotel staff couldn't say anything. They had tried their best to hire the best doctor they could for Qinchuan, but Lu Zi's serious illness was really a little tricky. These doctors were really helpless. "Tell me, who is the best doctor in West Sand City?" Qinchuan asked the hotel staff. "Is it because you can't get him?" The staff said helplessly, "We've tried our best, but that person's identity is special. We really can't get him." Qinchuan immediately asked, "Who is he?" "Xingming is called Dr. Xing. He's the most famous and powerful doctor in West Sand City. But because he's antisocial and difficult to get along with, very few people can get him to do anything. Even the owner of our hotel may not be able to get him to do anything. But I can guarantee you that as long as you can get Dr. Xing to help, this young lady's illness will definitely be cured." Seeing how confident the staff was, Qinchuan immediately asked, "Where is this Dr. Xing?" "He's whoosh." At this moment, a sharp blade suddenly shot in from the open balcony and pierced the staff member's throat. The staff member didn't even have time to scream before he died on the spot. Just as the staff's corpse fell to the ground, a tall figure walked into the living room from the balcony. She said to Qinchuan in a serious tone, "Don't listen to his words. Xingming is not a doctor. He is someone who is sent to kill you." Hearing this familiar voice, Qinchuan slowly turned his head to look at the person behind him. He pursed his lips and said, Is it really you? Diwu Qingyan. It's me. And it isn't me. Diwu Qingyan, who suddenly appeared, looked at Qin Xuan with a complicated gaze and said in a low voice, Lu Zi's poison is called immortal intoxication. Only nascent soul cultivators can cure it. Since the person beside you can't cure this poison, it means that he is not a nascent soul cultivator. You should leave West Sand City and return to the Black Moon Combat Academy as soon as possible. If there's enough time, your teacher will definitely be able to save Lu Zi. Qin Xuan looked at Diwu Qingyan calmly and asked, Why are you telling me this? You should be in cahoots with those people who want to kill me, right? You can't be trying to tell me that you've fallen in love with me, so you chose to betray me because of me, right? Hearing Qin Xuan's mocking words, Diwu Qingyan's expression suddenly became sorrowful. She said softly, If I said that this is the truth, would you believe me? I don't believe you. Qin Xuan pursed his lips. I won't believe someone who has lied to me once a second time. Diwu Qingyan smiled bitterly and replied, Whether you believe me or not, what I said is the truth. You should leave quickly. If you don't leave now, it will be too late. Qin Xuan had no intention of getting up and leaving. He looked at Diwu Qingyan and asked, There is no such thing as the Diwu family in this world. Jiang Feng is your accomplice, and even that housekeeper, Huang Feng, is your accomplice, right? Hearing Qin Xuan's question, Diwu Qingyan fell silent for a moment. Then, she nodded and said, You're right. There is no such thing as the Diwu family in this world. This is a completely fabricated lie. Huang Feng was indeed someone they arranged to stay in the training camp. Their purpose was to eliminate your suspicions of me and make it easier for me to get close to you and gain your trust. Jiang Feng's pursuit of me was also all an act. His purpose was to indirectly tell you that he likes you. Hearing Diwu Qingyan's honest answer, Qin Xuan smiled gently and asked, How did little Z get poisoned? The night before we left the training camp, during the graduation party, Jiang Feng poisoned Lu Zi's favorite sandwich chocolate. After Lu Zi ate one piece, he quietly removed the entire plate of chocolate. The Desert Bandits incident after that was also arranged by Jiang Feng. I see. No wonder so many people ate the same thing, but only little Z was poisoned. Qin Xuan looked deeply at Diwu Qingyan and asked with a cold smile, You pushed all the blame to Jiang Feng. Did you not do anything? I did. How could I not do anything? Diwu Qingyan's eyes were red and teary. I did more. I'll tell you everything now. I didn't originally look like this. They gave me the polymorph pill to change my appearance. My appearance is a combination of Yi Qingming's beauty, Zhou Lin's elegance, Baiju's coldness, and Lu Zi's innocence. It's a product of a mixture. The purpose was to let you find the shadows of others in me and then fall in love with me. Hearing Diwu Qingyan's words, Qin Xuan couldn't help but be stunned. He really didn't expect Diwu Qingyan's peerless appearance to be sown like this. Actually, I'm not very beautiful. I'm even a little ordinary. Do you know why they chose me? Diwu Qingyan laughed self-deprecatingly. They chose me because I'm too ordinary. No man likes me, so I'm still a virgin even now. They're really thoughtful. Qin Xuan sneered. If I showed the slightest interest in you when we were in the training camp, would you have found a chance to give yourself to me? That was the plan at first, but you stayed true to your heart. It's also because you weren't fooled by your appearance and were consistent from the beginning that's why you fell in love with me, and then stepped forward when I was about to be in danger. You didn't hesitate to expose the lie of your identity to save me. Qin Xuan interrupted Diwu Qingyan's words, making her speechless. The living room suddenly fell into a stiff silence. Chapter 671. The silence in the living room was shattered by a burst of applause. Jiang Feng's figure suddenly appeared on the balcony. He stared coldly at Diwu Qingyan and said coldly, Bitch, I knew you wouldn't be able to control yourself and would come here to kneel and lick his boots. Diwu Qingyan did not respond to Jiang Feng's insults. She looked deeply at Qin Xuan and said, Quickly take Lu Zi and leave. I'll stop him. Hearing Diwu Qingyin's words, before Qinchuan could say anything, Jiang Feng had already laughed wildly. He pointed at Diwu Qingyin and said disdainfully, "Bitch, you don't think I came here alone, do you? You're too naive. None of you can leave here alive today." Qinchuan looked deeply at Jiang Feng and asked, "Aren't you afraid of offending the owner of Shisha Hotel by attacking me so blatantly?" "Ha ha, Qinchuan. Oh, Qinchuan, I don't know if you're really stupid or pretending to be stupid. If we really cared about this, do you think I would appear here?" Jiang Feng smiled coldly and said to Qinchuan, "If you don't want to die, you'd better hand over the consul's worm leg. That way, you might have a chance to live." Hearing Jiang Feng's words, Qinchuan could not help but sigh and whisper, "You really came for the consul's worm leg? Is it worth it to mobilize so many people for such a thing? You don't know anything at all." Jiang Feng looked at Qinchuan greedily and said ferociously, "That's a treasure that can create a nascent soul cultivator. Do you want it?" Qinchuan smiled and hooked his finger at Jiang Feng. "If you want it, come and get it from me." Facing Qinchuan's provocation, Jiang Feng chuckled and asked, "Are you so confident that you can defeat me?" Before he could even finish his sentence, the aura on Jiang Feng's body suddenly skyrocketed. In the blink of an eye, he had rushed from complete foundation establishment to middle stage golden core. Seeing this scene, Diwu Qinyin immediately explained to Qinchuan, Jiang Feng was originally a mid-stage golden core cultivator. He took the qi concealing pill previously and hid his strength. Looking at Jiang Feng, whose aura had skyrocketed, Qinchuan's eyes gradually became sharp and cold. He said in a low voice, "If I remember correctly, you said that he was the one who poisoned Xiao Zi, right?" Without waiting for Diwu Qingyin to speak, Jiang Feng smiled and said, "That's right. I was the one who poisoned Lu Zi. Do you want to avenge Lu Zi? Then come and find me." As he spoke, Jiang Feng had already jumped down for the balcony and quickly flew out of West Sand City. When Qinchuan saw this, he immediately wanted to chase after him, but was stopped by Diwu Qingyin. "Qinchuan, don't be fooled," Diwu Qingyin said to Qinchuan anxiously. He said that he doesn't care about the attitude of the owner of West Sand Hotel, but in fact, he is very afraid. He is deliberately provoking you and wants to lure you out of the city to fight. They must have an ambush outside the city. Hearing Diwu Qingyin's words, Qinchuan looked at her deeply and asked, "So what? No one can stop me from avenging Xiao Zi." After Qinchuan said this, he shook off Diwu Qingyin's hand and chased after Jiang Feng. When Diwu Qingyin saw that Qinchuan insisted on chasing after Jiang Feng, she became anxious and quickly chased after him. However, she did not take the qi concealing pill and was really only at complete foundation establishment. She could not catch up to Qinchuan and Jiang Feng, who could fly. In the sky, Jiang Feng turned around and looked at Qinchuan, who was chasing after him. He could not help but reveal a sneer on his face. "Diwu Qingyin really couldn't stop you. What an idiot. Looks like I worried too much. I'll send you to heaven today." Just as he was thinking about these things, Jiang Feng took out a signal flare and shot it into the sky. A huge ghost face suddenly bloomed in the bright sky. His companions outside the city naturally knew what to do when they saw the ghost face. Qinchuan, who was not far away, naturally saw the ghost face signal released by Jiang Feng. He also knew that Jiang Feng must be sending a message to his companions. However, he did not care about this. He only cared about how to kill Jiang Feng. Qinchuan and Jiang Feng flew in the sky above West Sand City without any scruples. In addition to the ghost face signal, they attracted the attention of many cultivators in the city. Some of the bolder ones directly followed them, wanting to watch the show. Qinchuan did not care about these people, and Jiang Feng naturally did not care about them either. Whoosh! In less than 10 minutes, the two of them had left West Sand City and arrived at the desert outside the city. Jiang Feng stopped and slowly turned around to look at Qinchuan behind him. With a sinister smile, he said, "Let me give you a big present first." "Ghost dream," Jiang Feng shouted. He suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a cloud of black smoke toward Qinchuan. In the face of this sudden attack, Qin Chuan subconsciously dodged. At the same time, the black smoke suddenly exploded, enveloping Qin Chuan like a large net. Crackle! With a flash of lightning, a violent power instantly shattered the black smoke. Qin Chuan took the opportunity to break out of the encirclement and headed straight for Jiang Feng. Seeing that Qin Chuan had so easily broken his ghost dream, Jiang Feng was not surprised at all. If Qin Chuan did not even have this much strength, then they would not have needed to go through so much trouble to set up Qin Chuan. Phantom Flash. Seeing that Qin Chuan was about to reach Jiang Feng, Jiang Feng's figure suddenly flashed. In the next moment, he strangely appeared behind Qin Chuan, and then suddenly punched at Qin Chuan's back. Qin Chuan's reaction was extremely fast. Almost at the same time that Jiang Feng punched, a lightning shield appeared behind him, forcing Jiang Feng to stop his attack and pull away. Just as Jiang Feng was pulling away, Qin Chuan suddenly turned around and took out a disc array. He shouted angrily, "All around Thunder Prison!" Seeing this scene, Jiang Feng's expression suddenly changed. He whispered, "Oh no!" Rumble. The clear sky almost instantly darkened. Lightning rolled in the dark clouds, and the pressure was shocking. Pillars of lightning fell from the sky and headed straight for Jiang Feng. This extremely shocking scene shocked those who came to watch the show. They did not dare to move forward, afraid that they would be implicated. Facing the domineering all-round Thunder Prison attack, Jiang Feng tried his best to dodge. However, these lightning pillars under Qin Chuan's control did not give Jiang Feng any space to dodge at all. Just as Jiang Feng was about to die under the bombardment of the lightning pillars, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Jiang Feng. With a wave of his hand, the lightning pillars that filled the sky collapsed and dissipated between heaven and earth. The sky suddenly became clear, as if everything before was just an illusion. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan's pupils suddenly shrank, and he subconsciously whispered, "Nascent soul cultivator." Only a nascent soul cultivator could destroy the all-round Thunder Prison with a wave of his hand. Chapter 672. Jiang Feng, who was lucky enough to escape with his life, said excitedly to the middle-aged man beside him, "Thank you, sir, for saving me." The middle-aged man, who was called Sir, glanced at Qin Chuan indifferently and snorted coldly. What a piece of trash. A mid-stage golden core cultivator can't even defeat a brat who has just entered the golden core stage. Facing the middle-aged man's reprimand, Jiang Feng said awkwardly, "I have disappointed you, sir. You must be Xingming." At this moment, Qin Chuan, who was not far away, suddenly spoke. He looked at the middle-aged man with a sharp gaze, but he did not feel fear. Seeing that Qin Chuan was so calm, Xingming chuckled and replied, "Your performance is not bad, kid. From your temperament to your talent, they're all excellent. If you are willing, I can take you in as my last disciple." Qin Chuan grinned and replied, "Sorry, I'm not interested in being a dead man's disciple." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Xingming's face suddenly darkened, and he said coldly, "Do you think that you could be unscrupulous and look down on everyone just because you have a nascent soul cultivator protecting you?" Qin Chuan smiled and said to Xingming, "You're just one person. What right do you have to be so arrogant?" Xingming sneered and said, "Who told you that I'm alone?" As Xingming's voice fell, a ghost-like figure suddenly appeared beside him. It was a ghost cultivator who had reached the nascent soul realm. Qin Chuan looked deeply at the unknown ghost cultivator and said in a deep voice, "In order to deal with a mere early-stage golden core cultivator like me, you guys have really put in a lot of effort. You actually sent out 2 nascent soul cultivators. What a big deal." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, the ghost cultivator laughed cruelly and said to Qin Chuan, "I am Shi Cheng, the leader of the desert bandits in the west. Remember, if you want revenge in your next life, come and find me here. I will accompany you anytime." Qin Chuan glanced at Shi Cheng in surprise. He did not expect the ghost cultivator in front of him to be the desert butcher. Furthermore, his realm was not the rumored perfected golden core realm, but the nascent soul realm. Buzz. The space around Qin Chuan suddenly became blurry. In the next moment, a tall and thin figure and a delicate figure appeared. These two people were none other than Hui Tong and Lu Zi. Seeing Hui Tong suddenly appear beside Qin Chuan, Xing Ming and Shi Cheng's eyes revealed a hint of curiosity. They knew almost all of the nascent soul cultivators in the Star Dragon Federation, but they had no impression of Hui Tong. Senior, are you confident in facing the two of them at the same time? Although Qin Chuan was very confident in Hui Tong's strength, he still needed Hui Tong to personally tell him that there was no problem before he could be at ease. Hui Tong calmly glanced at Xing Ming and then at Shi Cheng. He replied, "One is in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, and the other is in the early stage of the nascent soul realm. Do you want to kill them or capture them alive?" Hearing Hui Tong's answer, Qin Chuan could not help but be stunned. "You want to capture nascent soul cultivators alive? Do you need to be so domineering?" Hui Tong did not hide his voice when he spoke, so Xing Ming and Shi Cheng could hear him clearly. At this moment, their faces were somewhat gloomy. Ever since they became nascent soul cultivators, this was the first time they were looked down upon like this. It will depend on Senior's mood. Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said to Hui Tong, "If it's convenient to capture them alive, then capture them alive. If it's convenient to kill them, then kill them." "I understand." Hui Tong nodded, and then an extremely terrifying aura erupted from his body. It surged toward Xing Ming and Shi Cheng like an avalanche. Heaven and earth shook. The moment Hui Tong's aura erupted, Xing Ming and Shi Cheng's faces quickly became shocked. They cried out involuntarily, "Late stage of the nascent soul realm?" Hearing Xing Ming and Shi Cheng's exclamation, Jiang Feng, who was standing on the side, suddenly turned pale. He never thought that the ordinary-looking middle-aged man next to Qin Chuan would be such a terrifying existence as the late stage of the nascent soul realm. It should be known that the martial Mo Jun, who was known as the strongest person in the Star Dragon Federation, was only in the late stage of the nascent soul realm. When they realized that Hui Tong was in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, Xing Ming and Shi Cheng knew that they could not fight this battle. With their strength, even if they joined hands, they were definitely not a match for Hui Tong, who was in the late stage of the nascent soul realm. It was not difficult for Hui Tong to kill or capture them alive. Retreat. Xing Ming and Shi Cheng did not hesitate to retreat. However, Hui Tong did not give them a chance. Under Hui Tong's extremely terrifying aura, Xing Ming and Shi Cheng were swept up into the sky. "Jiang Feng, capture Qin Chuan alive. Quick!" Xing Ming's shout rang in Jiang Feng's ears, causing Jiang Feng, who had fallen into a daze, to instantly wake up. If Xing Ming and Shi Cheng died in Hui Tong's hands, then he would definitely die as well. Now, their only way out was to capture Qin Chuan alive and use Qin Chuan to threaten Hui Tong. When he thought of this, Jiang Feng subconsciously looked at Qin Chuan. His eyes gradually became crazed as he roared, "You force me!" As he roared, Jiang Feng took out a mechanical box from his storage ring. After the mechanical box was opened, a golden armor appeared in front of Jiang Feng. He wanted to use the armor to attack Qin Chuan. Seeing this scene, Lu Zi said to Qin Chuan, "Let me do it." Although Qin Chuan was in the early stage of the Golden Core realm, Qin Chuan did not have armor. He was definitely not a match for Jiang Feng, who was using the armor. Therefore, Lu Zi felt that she had to go up first. Just as Lu Zi took out her armor and prepared to fight, Qin Chuan's figure suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, a snow-white armor appeared next to her. "Protect yourself. Leave the battle to me." Hearing the familiar voice coming from the battle armor, LVZ couldn't help but be surprised. "You actually have another battle armor?" Qin Chuan nodded with a smile. "It's a long story. Let's talk about it later." Before he could even finish his sentence, Qin Chuan's figure had already disappeared from where he was standing. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Jiang Feng. He held a snow-white longsword in his hand and stabbed it toward Jiang Feng's chest. The sword Qi was sharp and unstoppable. Facing Qin Chuan's powerful attack, Jiang Feng was shocked. He did not expect Qin Chuan to have another armor. Moreover, it seemed to be an exclusive armor. It was even more powerful than Lu Zi's love account. Without Qin Chuan's support, LVZ could not fly on her own. She had no choice but to enter the love and use the love's flying device to fly. She then looked at the battlefield nervously. When she saw that Qin Chuan had almost completely crushed Jiang Feng, she was finally able to relax. Chapter 673. This was Qin Chuan's first time piloting number 1 in a battle. However, he did not feel any unfamiliarity or discomfort. Instead, it felt very natural and comfortable. It was as if number 1 was a part of his body and not an independent battle armor. Is this the feeling of piloting an exclusive battle armor? When he thought of this, Qin Chuan's figure suddenly flashed and increased the distance between him and Jiang Feng. He aimed his left palm at Jiang Feng and suddenly shot out a milky white laser beam. It violently bombarded the defenseless Jiang Feng's body and caused quite a bit of damage to Jiang Feng's battle armor. Just as Jiang Feng was trying his best to adjust his body and counterattack, Qin Chuan took out a light-energy sniper rifle from his back and aimed it at Jiang Feng. With a soft hum, a thumb-sized bullet shot out from the muzzle and almost instantly pierced through Jiang Feng's chest. Ah! Jiang Feng screamed, and his whole body was on the verge of collapsing. He was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered and had no strength to resist at all. However, Qin Chuan did not have any intention of killing Jiang Feng. He wanted to use Jiang Feng to test out number 1's various attacks. Buzz! A crescent-shaped milky white blade slowly appeared between Qin Chuan's hands, emitting an extremely sharp aura. Under Qin Chuan's control, it flew towards Jiang Feng with a whoosh. In the next moment, Jiang Feng's legs were cut off, and he fell to the ground. What a fast speed! Qin Chuan was a little surprised. The flying speed of the moonlight slash was even faster than the light-energy bullet from the sniper rifle. Just kill me. At this time, Jiang Feng was on the verge of collapse. The intense pain from his wounds made him want to die immediately instead of slowly dying in torment. In the face of Jiang Feng's mournful roar, Qin Chuan's expression was indifferent and unmoved. No matter what, he would not be merciful to his enemies in this life. When the onlookers saw how Qin Chuan was torturing Jiang Feng, no one dared to say anything bad. They had clearly seen the appearance of the 3 nascent soul realm cultivators, especially the terrifying existence beside Qin Chuan, who was in the late nascent soul realm. Who would dare to provoke someone with such a powerful background? In the crowd, Diwu Qingyan looked at Qin Chuan, who was attacking Jiang Feng, with a complicated gaze. She originally thought that she had overestimated Qin Chuan, but she did not expect that she still underestimated his strength. And even more, she underestimated the power behind Qin Chuan. Late nascent soul realm. There were many people who had witnessed this battle today. Before tomorrow, the news of this battle would spread throughout the entire Star Dragon Federation. By then, everyone would know that Qin Chuan had a top expert in the late nascent soul realm behind him. With such a powerful background, who would dare to have any ideas about Qin Chuan? Most importantly, a nascent soul realm cultivator might fall in today's battle. You didn't want to leave. I thought you were brave, but not smart. I didn't expect that I was thinking too much. Diwu Qingyan looked deeply at Qin Chuan. I will never appear in front of you again. I will silently watch over you in the dark. Boom! A violent explosion suddenly sounded in the sky. This was not Qin Chuan experimenting on Jiang Feng again. It was Jiang Feng who could not bear the humiliation and chose to self-destruct. His divine soul was destroyed. Seeing Jiang Feng die, Qin Chuan did not have any sympathy or pity for him. If it were not for the various combat methods of experiment number 1, he would have killed Jiang Feng long ago. At this time, the battle was over. Lu Zi came to Qin Chuan's side and looked curiously at the armor on Qin Chuan's body. She asked, "Where did you get this armor? Did the training camp custom make 2 sets of armor for you." Qin Chuan chuckled and shook his head. "This is the armor my advisor made for me. It uses the outer shell of the consul's insect leg." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lu Zi could not help but be stunned. She exclaimed, "The outer shell of the consul's insect leg? Then isn't your armor equivalent to a Dao artifact?" Qin Chuan could not help but be stunned. He did not expect there to be such a conversion method. However, after thinking about it carefully, Lu Zi was right. In terms of value, his armor was even more valuable than an ordinary Dao artifact. Just as Qin Chuan and Lu Zi were talking, an extremely terrifying energy fluctuation suddenly came from the sky. It was as if the entire sky was about to split open. The flickering sky gave everyone a lot of psychological pressure. Everyone knew that it was the turbulence caused by the battle between nascent soul cultivators. If such an earth-shattering battle happened on the surface, most of Shisha City would probably be razed to the ground. Rumble. A deafening roar suddenly sounded in the sky, followed by the roar of a dragon. The next moment, an extremely bright ball of light suddenly appeared in the sky. The moment the ball of light appeared, it suddenly split open and turned into countless rays of light that shot in all directions. At the same time, everyone seemed to feel that an extremely powerful aura had disappeared from the world. When the light dissipated, the sky gradually cleared up. A moment later, Hui Tong's figure suddenly appeared beside Qin Chuan. However, Xing Ming and Shi Cheng, who had been taken away by him earlier, were nowhere to be seen. Xing Ming was at the middle stage of nascent soul. It was a bit troublesome to capture him alive. In the end, he exploded and died. As for the ghost cultivator, he has fallen into my hands. Hearing Hui Tong's words, Qin Chuan asked with concern, "Senior, although your realm is profound, it was also a bit troublesome to fight against 2 people at the same time. I wonder if you were injured?" Hui Tong shook his head and said to Qin Chuan, "Previously, I soaked in the true dragon water for a long time and absorbed a lot of it. My physique is already different from before. A middle-stage nascent soul, an early-stage nascent soul, can't cause me any trouble. If it weren't for capturing them alive, the battle wouldn't have lasted for so long. Then I'm relieved." Qin Chuan smiled and said to Hui Tong, "There's no time to lose. Let's take the flying ship back to school immediately." Just as Qin Chuan's group was about to leave, a young woman in white suddenly appeared before them. Her tone was respectful as she said, "My name is Yu Fei, and I'm the owner of the Western Sands Hotel. I didn't know that Senior was staying in the Western Sands Hotel, so I've neglected you." Hearing Yu Fei's words, Hui Tong's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Qin Chuan beside him. Seeing Hui Tong's action, Yu Fei couldn't help but be shocked. Could it be that this late-stage nascent soul senior was taking orders from this young man? Qin Chuan sensed Hui Tong's gaze. He pursed his lips and said to Yu Fei, "We've been living well at the Shisha Hotel these days. Thank you for your concern. We still have important matters to attend to, so we won't chat with Senior. If we meet again in the future, we'll definitely ask Senior for guidance." Chapter 674. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Yu Fei looked at Qin Chuan meaningfully, then smiled and said, "Since that's the case, let me arrange for someone to send you to the aviation base. In order to prevent any accidents from happening, why don't you have my ride?" Qin Chuan didn't refuse Yu Fei's kindness, because he was indeed worried that they would encounter an accident on the flying ship. If he took Yu Fei's ride, it might be faster and safer. "Thank you, Senior." Yu Fei smiled and replied, "You're welcome." Then, Yu Fei turned around and said to the steward in a black suit standing behind her, "Steward, send these distinguished guests to the aviation base and satisfy all their requests." "Understood." The steward respectfully said to Qin Chuan and the others, "Please follow me." Qin Chuan nodded to the steward, then said to Yu Fei goodbye. Yu Fei stood in place and watched Qin Chuan and the others leave. A moment later, a tall figure suddenly appeared beside her. Her appearance was somewhat similar to her, and they were both extremely beautiful and outstanding. "Mother, Why are you so polite to a young man? Yusin looked at Yufei with a puzzled gaze. In the end, he's just an early golden core stage cultivator. He's only relying on the late nascent soul stage cultivator beside him. It's no big deal. As the young city lord of West Sand City, Yusin had always been proud. She had always regarded Yufei as her idol. This was the first time she saw Yufei speak so politely to a young man. Even if the other party was the famous Qin Chuan, he was not on the same level as Yufei. Hearing Yusin's words, Yufei shook her head gently and said to Yusin, "You came a little late and didn't see the actual situation." Although Qin Chuan called the late nascent soul stage cultivator senior, the late nascent soul stage cultivator's behavior in front of Qin Chuan was not like a senior at all, but more like a retainer. Yusin couldn't help but be stunned. She looked at Yufei with astonishment and asked, "Retainer?" Although it sounds a little impolite, it's the truth. Yufei sighed and said to Yusin, "Qin Chuan is not a simple person. Qin Chuan's talent was outstanding, and he became famous at a young age. He was the leader of the younger generation in the Star Dragon Federation. In terms of background, Qin Chuan's teacher, Ningya, was a newly advanced nascent soul stage cultivator and a 4th grade battle troop formation master with a brilliant reputation. Qin Chuan's advisor was the old dean of the Black Moon Academy, who was on par with the military's Marshal Mojun. In addition to the late nascent soul stage cultivator who seemed to be Qin Chuan's retainer, Qin Chuan now had at least 3 nascent soul stage cultivators by his side, and each one of them was not simple. This kind of background was extremely powerful in the entire Star Dragon Federation. Even the Federation's chairman, Gao In, couldn't ignore Qin Chuan. Yufei slowly looked up at the sky, and a complicated expression flashed through her eyes. She said in a low voice, "How many years has it been since a nascent soul stage cultivator died in our Star Dragon Federation? Once today's matter spreads, it will definitely cause an earthquake in the Star Dragon Federation. At that time, everyone who covets Qin Chuan will have to carefully consider their own abilities." Hearing Yufei's words, Yusin curled her lips and said, "If you ask me, Qin Chuan is just so-so." Yufei turned to look at her most beloved daughter and suddenly asked, "If I wanted to set you up with Qin Chuan, would you be willing?" Yusin was slightly taken aback, and then her face turned red. She whispered, "Mom, what are you talking about?" Looking at Yusin's shy appearance, Yufei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This girl said that Qin Chuan was just so-so, but if there was really a chance to be with Qin Chuan, this girl probably wouldn't refuse, right? Thinking about it, which girl wouldn't like a guy like Qin Chuan? At this time, Qin Chuan, who had already boarded the airship, didn't know what Yufei was thinking. If he knew, he would probably be glad that he escaped quickly enough. He didn't want to have anything to do with any beautiful girl. Under Qin Chuan's request, the airship's hull had been cleared. Other than Qin Chuan's trio, there was no one else. After checking that there were no surveillance devices, Qin Chuan said to Hui Tong, "Senior, you can release that guy." Hui Tong nodded, then opened his mouth and spat out a cloud of black smoke. The moment the smoke appeared, it quickly flew into the distance. However, Hui Tong only gently waved his hand to retrieve the black smoke. He caught it in his hand and made it unable to move. "Let me go! Let me go!" Hearing this sharp cry, Qin Chuan sneered and said, "Shi Cheng, you'd better not struggle." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Shi Cheng immediately roared, "Qin Chuan, as a human, you actually have a demon following you. You are betraying the human race." Facing Shi Cheng's roar, Qin Chuan didn't care. He said indifferently, "If you want to live, you'd better shut your mouth. Answer whatever I ask you. Otherwise, I will ask the senior to erase you from this world." As a nascent soul stage cultivator, Shi Cheng had always been superior. He had never been treated like this. Facing Qin Chuan's threat, he was furious. He roared and was about to charge at Qin Chuan. Seeing that Shi Cheng was about to harm Qin Chuan, Hui Tong snorted coldly. A gray dragon's breath came out of his nose and sprinkled on Shi Cheng. Facing the burning dragon's breath, Shi Cheng immediately wailed, "Ouch, ouch, ouch. No, I know I was wrong." Seeing this, Qin Chuan raised his hand and signaled Hui Tong to stop. After Hui Tong dispersed the dragon's breath, Shi Cheng's scream stopped. However, his figure became much dimmer and revealed a strong and weak aura. Now you're honest. Qin Chuan smiled and said to Shi Cheng, "Are you willing to cooperate now?" Facing Qin Chuan's question, Shi Cheng felt extremely humiliated. However, in order to survive, he could only endure the humiliation. He replied to Qin Chuan, "I am willing to cooperate." Hearing Shi Cheng's words, Qin Chuan asked, "Tell me, who sent you to kill me?" Shi Cheng had long known that Qin Chuan would ask this question. He answered straightforwardly, "I don't know who they are or where they came from. I just accepted their benefits and agreed to do it." Qin Chuan frowned slightly and asked, "You didn't even know who they were and dared to agree to cooperate. You also know that I am a desert bandit. Desert bandits don't think so much when they do things. If there are benefits, they will do it." Shi Cheng replied, "The benefits they gave were very generous. I had no reason to refuse." Qin Chuan asked curiously, "What benefits did they give you?" Shi Cheng answered honestly, "They promised to give me your body and help me seize it and be reborn." Chapter 675, Possession and Rebirth. Hearing Shi Cheng's answer, Qin Chuan's face suddenly became gloomy. Lu Zi and Hui Tong's faces also became very ugly. They didn't expect that the other party would promise Shi Cheng Qin Chuan's body. These people are really good at scheming. Not only do they want to kill me, but they also want to use me in exchange for your help. They are really good at scheming. Qin Chuan sneered and said to Shi Cheng, "Even if you don't know the identity of those people, you can probably guess. I don't believe that you don't know anything." Shi Cheng looked at Qin Chuan with some hesitation. He gritted his teeth and said, "If I betray them now, even if you let me go, I will still die." Hearing Shi Cheng's words, Qin Chuan's eyes flashed. Shi Cheng wanted to get a promise from him. Qin Chuan looked deeply at Shi Cheng and then asked Hui Tong, "Senior, do you have any contract that can restrict Shi Cheng and make him my follower and not resist?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, before Hui Tong could respond, Shi Cheng had already screamed, "What do you want to do? I will never sign a contract with you and allow you to enslave me. Just give up on that idea." Qin Chuan completely ignored Shi Cheng's screams and patiently waited for Hui Tong's answer. After thinking for a moment, Hui Tong said to Qin Chuan, "In the dragon race, there is a contract called the Soul Oath. Once the Soul Oath is signed, the other party will forever serve the owner of the contract. They cannot betray the owner and cannot have any improper thoughts about the owner. Once the other party has such thoughts, the owner will instantly know and can use the power of the Soul Oath to punish the other party or even directly kill the other party. Unless the owner takes the initiative to remove the Soul Oath, the Soul Oath will never be removed." Hearing Hui Tong's answer, Qin Chuan asked with interest, "Then what are the conditions for signing the Soul Oath?" Hui Tong replied, "It requires a drop of essence blood from the owner of the contract and a strand of the owner's soul." Qin Chuan gently nodded and then looked at the extremely unwilling Shi Cheng. He said to Shi Cheng, "Shi Cheng, if you want to live, then sign a soul oath with me. I can promise you that you only need to follow me for 10 years. Once the 10 years are up, I will remove the soul oath and give you your freedom." Shi Cheng heard this and sneered. "You think I will be fooled? Once the soul oath is signed, it's up to you whether or not it's lifted." Qin Chuan took a deep look at Shi Cheng and said, "I can swear that I will remove the soul oath when the 10 years are up. This is my bottom line. If you don't want to, then I can only kill you." Facing the threat of death, Shi Cheng couldn't help but fall into silence. He had gone through countless trials and tribulations to cultivate to his current realm. If he were to die like this, he definitely wouldn't be willing. And if Qin Chuan was really willing to remove the soul oath after 10 years, then 10 years of freedom in exchange for a chance to live wasn't something unacceptable. After thinking about this, Shi Cheng took a deep look at Qin Chuan and said in a deep voice, "You have to swear on your inner demon. If you're not willing to remove the soul oath after 10 years, then you will never enter the nascent soul stage in your life. Qin Chuan chuckled and raised his hand to swear without hesitation. I swear on my inner demon. As long as you're willing to follow me, serve me, and fulfill your duties within 10 years, then after the 10 years are up, I will remove the soul oath. If I violate it, then I will never enter the nascent soul stage in my life. Cultivators rarely swore, but once they did, they had to fulfill it. This was something that all cultivators knew. When Shi Cheng saw that Qin Chuan had made the oath, he completely gave up struggling in his heart. He simply separated a strand of his divine soul and let Qin Chuan control it. Hui Tong immediately told Qin Chuan how to sign the soul oath. Qin Chuan followed Hui Tong's instructions and successfully signed the soul oath with Shi Cheng. After the soul oath was signed, he felt that Shi Cheng's life and death were in his control. As long as he wanted to, he could kill Shi Cheng now. Since the soul oath has been signed, Senior, let him go. Qin Chuan glanced at Shi Cheng, who was curled up in Hui Tong's hand. From now on, this guy could be regarded as their companion. Hui Tong released Shi Cheng's shackles. After Shi Cheng regained his freedom, he turned into a skinny figure and said to Qin Chuan with some embarrassment, Master. You don't have to call me Master. Just call me by my name in the future. Qin Chuan smiled and said to Shi Cheng, Now can we talk about who wants to harm me? Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Shi Cheng immediately replied, As far as I know, Xingming is a nascent soul stage cultivator in Black City. Maybe this matter is related to Black City. Black City? Qin Chuan was a little surprised when he heard this and asked, Are you sure? Shi Cheng nodded and said, Xingming was originally a rogue cultivator. Later, for some reason, he became an honorary director of Black City. In the past 100 years, he has done a lot of things for Black City. Xingming's action this time is very likely to be Black City's idea. Otherwise, I can't think of anyone in this world who can instruct Xingming to do such a thing. Hearing Shi Cheng's answer, Qin Chuan's face couldn't help but become a little ugly. He didn't expect that this matter would be related to Black City. Lu Zi saw Qin Chuan's face change and comforted Qin Chuan. Don't think too much. If this matter is really related to Black City, it is the decision made by the higher-ups of Black City. It has nothing to do with Senior Zhou. Qin Chuan took a deep look at Lu Zi and said to Lu Zi, Then do you know that Senior Zhou father is now the Deputy City Lord of Black City's main city, Sky City? Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lu Zi was shocked. She really didn't know much about this matter. Some time ago, teacher contacted me. She saw Zhou Ming in the Federation's first conference room. Zhou Ming attended the meeting as a representative of Black City. That is to say, Zhou Ming is now a higher-up of Black City and can represent the will of Black City. If this matter is really related to Black City, then it is impossible for him not to know. What do you think? Hearing Lu Zi's question, Qin Chuan couldn't help but fall into silence. To be honest, his heart was a little confused, and he didn't know how to face this reality. Seeing Qin Chuan silent, Lu Zi couldn't help but sigh. Even if Zhou Ming knows, Senior Zhou may not know, don't say it. Qin Chuan took a deep breath and said, I hope that Shi Cheng guessed wrong. If this matter is really related to Black City and Zhou Ming, if there is a grudge, an eye for an eye. Chapter 676. The news of a mysterious late nascent soul stage cultivator killing a mid-nascent soul stage cultivator and capturing an early nascent soul stage cultivator had spread throughout the entire Star Dragon Federation in less than an hour. Almost all the forces had learned of this news through different channels, and they were all shocked by it. It must be known that the Star Dragon Federation only had 3 late nascent soul stage cultivators on the surface. Marshal Mo Jun, Black Moon Academy's Ning Zhongtian, and Black City's Lord Shangwan Sun. Today, a mysterious late nascent soul stage cultivator had suddenly appeared. How could everyone not be curious and shocked? Most importantly, this mysterious late nascent soul stage cultivator had killed a mid-nascent soul stage cultivator, and this mid-nascent soul stage cultivator was the honorary director of the Black City. When everyone curiously investigated the cause of this matter, they were shocked to find that this matter was actually related to Qin Chuan. Could this matter be an open and covert struggle between Black City and the Black Moon Academy? While many powers were investigating the cause of this matter, Zhou Lin had already left the cultivation room with an ashen face and was running toward Zhou Meng's office. Lin, wait for me. Duan Yusin chased after Zhou Lin and finally caught up with her. She hurriedly pulled Zhou Lin and advised, "Can you not be so agitated?" Zhou Lin looked back at Duan Yusin and coldly said, "Black City's honorary director killed Qin Chuan. How do you expect me to be calm?" Duan Yusin helplessly said, "Isn't Qin Chuan fine? If Qin Chuan didn't have that mysterious late nascent soul stage cultivator by his side, have you thought about what would have happened to Qin Chuan?" Zhou Lin coldly stared at Duan Yusin. "He would have died, but the one who died now isn't him. It's our Black City's nascent soul stage cultivator, our honorary director." Duan Yusin anxiously said, "Have you not considered how painful this would be for our Black City?" Hearing Duan Yusin's words, Zhou Lin looked at Duan Yusin with an extremely sad gaze and said in a low voice, "Yusin, you've changed." Duan Yusin was slightly stunned and said with some astonishment, "What are you talking about?" "I said you've changed. You're no longer the Duan Yusin I'm familiar with." Zhou Lin pursed her lips and asked, "Since when did you become such a person who only cares about gains and losses?" The death of the honorary director is indeed a great loss to He Chung, but he only has himself to blame. Zhou Lin didn't care about Xing Ming at all. In her opinion, Xing Ming deserved to die. If he didn't have evil intentions towards Qin Chuan, he wouldn't have been killed. Lin, you are first and foremost a member of Black City, and second, you are Qin Chuan's senior sister. Duan Yusin couldn't help but say, "It's not that I care about the gains and losses, but you can't see anything except Qin Chuan in your eyes. Let me ask you, if your father is really involved in this matter, what do you plan to do? Are you going to kill your father to avenge Qin Chuan?" Duan Yusin's words made Zhou Lin stunned on the spot. She looked at Duan Yusin in a daze and couldn't say a word. If her father was really involved in the murder of Qin Chuan, what should she do? Duan Yusin saw Zhou Lin's slightly helpless look and couldn't help but feel distressed. She whispered to Zhou Lin, Lin, let's go back first, okay? We'll wait until the truth comes to light, and then we'll seek confirmation. It's not good for anyone if you go back in anger." "Yusin, thank you." Zhou Lin looked at Duan Yusin with a complicated gaze and said, "But I won't go back. I have to clarify things. Don't worry, I won't do anything irrational. All I want is an answer." Seeing Zhou Lin insist on meeting Zhou Meng, Duan Yusin sighed helplessly and said to Zhou Lin, "Since you've already made your decision, I can only support you. Go bravely do what you want to do. Don't leave any regrets in your heart." Duan Yusin stood on the spot and watched Zhou Lin leave. When Zhou Lin's figure was out of sight, she took out her optical computer and contacted Zhou Meng. "Uncle Zhou, I tried my best, but I really couldn't stop Lin. I understand." Zhou Meng's voice came from the optical computer. "Since you can't stop her, let her come. This is something I'll have to face sooner or later." Zhou Lin had the fingerprint to unlock Zhou Meng's office, but she didn't open the door directly. Instead, she stood at the door and pressed the doorbell. The moment the doorbell rang, the tightly shut office door slowly opened to both sides. A corridor that wasn't too long appeared before Zhou Lin's eyes. The corridor that she could walk through on a normal day seemed endless in her eyes. "Why don't you come in?" Zhou Meng's voice came from the office. Zhou Lin took a deep breath and stepped in. She crossed the corridor and stood in front of Zhou Meng. Zhou Meng was wearing a decent suit, sitting on the comfortable office chair with a relaxed posture. He looked at Zhou Lin calmly and didn't speak. He gave the opportunity to speak first to Zhou Lin. Facing the silent Zhou Meng, Zhou Lin took a deep breath and asked, "Father, you should know why I'm here." Zhou Meng asked faintly, "Should I know?" Zhou Lin pursed her lips and whispered, "I know. Yusin will contact you after I leave. Zhou Meng was silent for a moment, then said to Zhou Lin, "You're right. Yusin did contact me. I also know why you're here, but are you sure you want to question your father for a boy you've only known for 2 years?" Hearing Zhou Meng's words, Zhou Lin looked deeply at Zhou Meng and said, "So, you really do know the inside story. You know that He Cheng wants to murder Qin Chuan." "This isn't a murder, it's a strategic deployment of He Cheng," Zhou Meng explained. "Qin Chuan has something we need. We must get it. Then why can't we use a normal transaction?" Zhou Lin asked. "Why do we have to use such an extreme method? How do you know I haven't tried?" Zhou Meng sighed. "If we can get Qin Chuan's things through a normal transaction, we won't use such a method. Moreover, we don't mean to kill Qin Chuan. We just want to kidnap him. This is just your side of the story. I don't believe it." Zhou Lin looked at Zhou Meng seriously. "And I don't want this to happen a second time." Zhou Meng looked deeply at Zhou Lin. "He Cheng has lost an honorary director, a nascent soul cultivator. You only have yourself to blame." Zhou Lin said in a low voice, "You should pay the price for doing something wrong." Chapter 677. Bastard. Hearing Zhou Lin's words, Zhou Meng immediately shouted angrily, and the expression on his face immediately turned gloomy. Facing Zhou Meng's reprimand, Zhou Lin had no intention of backing down. She asked directly, "Did I say anything wrong? The one who died was Xing Ming, your teacher's close friend. According to seniority, you should call him uncle. Is this how you treat your elders?" Zhou Meng said angrily. "Do you really want to go crazy for a man who doesn't love you at all?" "Father, I don't have such an uncle." Zhou Lin shook her head. "Besides, this has nothing to do with love. You guys are doing something wrong. Am I supposed to just watch you guys continue to do the wrong thing? What do you think is wrong and what is right?" Zhou Meng snorted. "As long as we can win the final victory, it is right. The process is not important." Looking at Zhou Meng's ashen face, Zhou Lin was disappointed. She did not expect Zhou Meng to become a person who only cared about gains and losses. He had completely lost the emotions that a person should have. What was the difference between him and those aristocratic families that they had been resisting in the past? "Father, do you still remember what your wish is?" Zhou Lin looked at Zhou Meng sadly. "You once told me that your wish was to bring happiness to all the poor people in the world. But what you are doing now has nothing to do with your wish. You don't know anything." Zhou Meng said in a low voice, "This is an extremely realistic world. Only with great strength can you win the respect of others and do what you want to do. Without strength, all your wishes are just wishful thinking." Zhou Lin asked, "Father, what kind of strength do you want?" "Nascent soul." Zhou Meng took a deep look at Zhou Lin. "Only by advancing to the nascent soul stage can I have more say in the Black City. Only then can I use the power of the Black City to do what I want to do, to resist the rule of the aristocratic families, and to realize true fairness and justice in this world. Have you ever considered whether what you are doing is fair and just a Qin Chuan? Why must your way of realizing your wish be based on the suffering of innocent people? In order to achieve great things, one has to pay a certain price and sacrifice. For the future of millions of people, Qin Chuan's death is worth it." Following Zhou Meng's words, the office fell into a strange silence. Zhou Meng and Zhou Lin looked at each other. One was impassioned, while the other was disappointed. "Father, you've really disappointed me." Zhou Lin smiled bitterly. "I thought that you would work hard to realize your dreams after you sat in a high position. You would do things that many people wouldn't dare to try. I didn't expect your actions to be no different from those aristocratic families." "Zhou Lin, you are my daughter. As your father, I will not harm you." Zhou Meng looked at Zhou Lin and sighed. "Why can't you understand me?" "Understand? Father, why can't you understand me?" Zhou Lin shook her head. "What did I do wrong? Why do you have to endure such torture?" Zhou Meng looked deeply at Zhou Lin and said to Zhou Lin, "You and Qin Chuan can't have a happy ending. Give up." Zhou Lin shook her head again. "What will happen between me and Qin Chuan is our business. Father, The person who should let go is you. Power has already corrupted you. I don't want you to continue to be corrupted until you become a walking corpse driven by profit. The conversation between father and daughter came to an end. Both sides parted unhappily. After Zhou Lin left, Zhou Ming couldn't help but let out a long sigh. When he learned of the plan, he had already expected this day to come. However, when Zhou Lin really stood in front of him, he couldn't say a single word that he had originally thought of. The only thing left was a quarrel between them. Zhou Ming didn't feel guilty about Qin Chuan. In his opinion, people who walked different paths couldn't make plans together. Since Qin Chuan couldn't be his companion against the aristocratic families and wouldn't become his son-in-law, there was no need for him to think too much about Qin Chuan. After all, he and Qin Chuan were just familiar strangers. I really don't know what's so good about that kid. Why are you and father quarreling like this? Calmly speaking, Qin Chuan is handsome and humorous. In terms of talent, Qin Chuan deserves to be called an outstanding talent among the younger generation. In terms of cultivation, he is already in the early golden core stage. In terms of background, there are at least 3 nascent soul cultivators behind him. Moreover, they are all outstanding nascent soul cultivators. Which girl wouldn't like someone with such status? A slightly low voice suddenly sounded behind Zhou Ming. He turned around and asked, "Captain, why are you here?" Shangwan Yuanhao glanced at Zhou Ming and replied, "I was worried that you and Lin Lin would quarrel, so I came to check on the situation. I didn't expect that I would still be a step too late." Hearing Shangwan Yuanhao's words, Zhou Ming sighed and said, "Lin Lin is too stubborn. It's hard for us to change her mind. There's nothing in this world that can't be changed. We all know Lin Lin's feelings for Qin Chuan, but how many people can be faithful to one person until the end of their lives? When Qin Chuan dies and other young talents emerge, Lin Lin will naturally fall in love with them." Hearing this, Zhou Ming looked at Shangwan Yuanhao with a complicated gaze and asked, "Captain, I still don't understand why you must kill Qin Chuan. In fact, with Qin Chuan and Lin Lin's relationship, Qin Chuan will very likely become one of us." "No, you're wrong. Qin Chuan will never become one of us." Zhou Ming was confused and asked, "Why do you say that?" Shangwan Yuanhao took a deep look at Zhou Ming and asked, "Do you still remember when I suddenly retired?" Hearing Shangwan Yuanhao mention the past, Zhou Ming nodded and replied, "Of course I remember. At that time, you suddenly chose to retire. Many of us couldn't understand it. Even when we asked you, you didn't give us any explanation. Could it be that Qin Chuan has something to do with your retirement?" If Zhou Ming remembered correctly, Qin Chuan had just been born not long ago. Shangwan Yuanhao's face revealed a trace of reminiscence. He said to Zhou Ming, "That year, I killed 2 people. One was the Qin family's second miss, Qin Qing, and the other was Qin Tian." Hearing this, Zhou Ming couldn't help but be stunned. Although he didn't know who Qin Tian was, he knew that Qin Qing was Qin Chuan's biological mother. Qin Tian must be Qin Chuan's biological father. In other words, Shangwan Yuanhao was Qin Chuan's biological father. Chapter 678. I'm finally back. Standing on the ground of the city of the elves, Qin Chuan felt that his body and soul had settled down. He felt like he had returned home. Compared to the state capital of Qing, the city of the elves is more like my home. Ever since he came to the Black Moon Combat Academy, Qin Chuan had not returned to the state capital of Qing. In fact, there was nothing else in the state capital of Qing that Qin Chuan missed other than Old Man Sunday. After everything was over, perhaps Qin Chuan would consider returning to the state capital of Qing to reminisce about the past. However, he did not have a mood or time for that now. "Qin Chuan, let's go back to school first," Lu Zi said to Qin Chuan. "Is Teacher Ning waiting for you at school?" Qin Chuan nodded and said to Lu Zi, "Let's go back to school first. I've been away for so long, and I miss everyone." Qin Chuan and Lu Zi had to return to school. Hui Tong, on the other hand, was preparing to go to the Dragon Spirit Lake to seek advice from Tsang how to do some problems with cultivation. Qin Chuan naturally had no objections to this. As for Shi Cheng, he followed Qin Chuan and did his best to protect Qinchuan. After returning to the Black Moon Combat Academy through the teleportation portal, Qinchuan saw Ningya standing not far away as soon as he stepped out of the portal. Ningya still looked familiar to him. She was wearing a purple cheongsam and looked elegant and noble. Qinchuan smiled at Ningya and said, "Teacher, long time no see." Ningya looked at Qinchuan and smiled. She opened her arms and said, "Let the teacher and disciple who have not seen each other for a long time give each other a warm hug." Qinchuan and Ningya hugged each other gently and then separated. Ningya then hugged Lu Zi before turning her gaze to Shi Cheng, who was standing beside Qinchuan. She asked Qinchuan, "Is he the desert butcher?" Qinchuan nodded and said to Ningya, "I have already signed a contract with Shi Cheng. He will serve me for 10 years. After 10 years, I will let him go." Hearing Qinchuan's words, Ningya said meaningfully, "I haven't seen you for a while, but you've gathered a strong force around you." Ningya's words were right. Not to mention the familiar Lion Baron. Just the gray system alone was enough to amaze people, not to mention Shi Cheng. As for Shi Yu and Hu Xiao, there was no need to talk about them. Qinchuan smiled embarrassedly and said to Ningya, "Teacher, we are all my friends. We are both teachers and friends." "I know." Ningya smiled and said to Qinchuan, "Let's go back and talk." Lu Zi went to see her grandfather. Shi Cheng was arranged by Qinchuan to walk around and familiarize himself with the school environment. Therefore, only Qinchuan and Ningya returned to the school apartment. After entering the apartment, the smile on Ningya's face suddenly disappeared. Her expression became cold and stern as she said in a deep voice, "I've investigated." Xing Ming, who attacked you this time, is He Cheng's honorary director. It's impossible that He Cheng doesn't know his intentions. So, the one who wants to kill you this time is He Cheng. Hearing Ningya's words, Qinchuan pursed his lips and said, "I know it is Black Castle. We have never had any disputes with Black Castle before. Why would they suddenly attack you?" Ningya was puzzled. "Is there something I don't know?" Qinchuan shook his head and said, "I don't have much contact with Black Castle. I have never had any grievances with the people of Black Castle. It is impossible to provoke the higher-ups of Black Castle. To be honest, I don't understand why Black Castle suddenly wants to kill me. But the other party once asked me to hand over the consul's worm leg. Maybe this is a reason?" "Hee, it is a good reason." Ningya sneered. "As early as when you handed the worm leg to the teacher, we have already announced this matter to the public. Of course, the people who know about this matter are only the higher-ups of various forces. Black Castle is no exception. They know that the worm leg is not on you, but they still attack you. This shows that the worm leg is just a lie. They're using the worm leg to cover up their real reason for attacking you." Qinchuan frowned and said, "Then why are they doing this?" Ningya shook her head. "I'm also investigating the reason why they attacked you, but I didn't find anything. Maybe you can contact that senior of yours. She might know something." Hearing Ningya's proposal, Qinchuan's expression changed slightly, and he fell into silence. Seeing Qinchuan's expression change, Ningya asked faintly, "You are hesitating. Are you afraid that Zhou Lin knows that Black Castle wants to attack you, but didn't tell you?" After a moment of silence, Qinchuan nodded and whispered, "I should believe that Senior won't harm me, but the person on the other side is her father." Ningya knew what Qinchuan was worried about. She sighed and said, "Contact her. Whether she knows or not, you should give yourself an answer." Ningya's voice just fell when Qinchuan's optical computer flashed. Zhou Lin, who was far away in Sky City, sent a call request. Seeing Qinchuan's optical computer interface, Ningya turned and walked towards the cultivation room. As she walked, she said, "I will leave the space and time for you. After you are done, come to the cultivation room and find me." After Ningya walked into the cultivation room, Qinchuan accepted the call request sent by Zhou Lin. However, neither of them spoke and quietly listened to each other's breathing. This silence lasted for a long time before Qinchuan took the lead to break the silence. "Do you know?" "I know now." The short conversation made Qinchuan relax. Zhou Lin's answer was that she knew about it now, and not that she knew about it. This meant that Zhou Lin had no idea about it before it happened. She only found out about it after it happened. I'm sorry, Zhou Lin said very guiltily. I don't know how to face you. Hearing Zhou Lin's words, Qin Chuan smiled and responded, Senior, I'm fine. This matter isn't your fault. You don't have to take it to heart. But my father was involved. He wanted to kill you. Qin Chuan could ignore this matter, but Zhou Lin couldn't be so calm. If this matter couldn't be resolved, she couldn't face Qin Chuan with a clear conscience. Hearing Zhou Lin's words, Qin Chuan fell silent again. Although he had prepared for the worst before this, when Zhou Lin told him the truth, he still felt a little sad. It turned out that Zhou Lin's father was really involved in this matter and was one of the culprits who wanted to kill him. Qin Chuan hadn't seen Zhou Meng for 2 years. In his impression, Zhou Meng was still the black-faced god of the second high school, always reprimanding students who didn't abide by the school rules. But now that black-faced god image of Zhou Meng in his heart had shattered. They were no longer the dean and student, but mortal enemies. Chapter 679. Buzz. The door of the cultivation room slowly opened. Qin Chuan walked in and looked at Ningya, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground. He said softly, Teacher, I'm here. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Ningya slowly stopped her cultivation. She looked up at Qin Chuan and smiled gently. Let me guess. Zhou Lin must have contacted you to apologize to you. She didn't know anything before the incident happened. She only heard the news after the incident, right? Qin Chuan nodded and said with a complicated tone, That's true. Ningya sighed and asked, Do you believe her? Qin Chuan was silent for a moment and then replied, I believe in senior sister's character. Among Qin Chuan's friends, except for Wang Bo, Zhou Lin was the one who knew him the earliest. He knew Zhou Lin's character very well and trusted her. Since Zhou Lin had explained to him, he was willing to believe in Zhou Lin. Seeing Qin Chuan's deep trust in Zhou Lin, Ningya shook her head helplessly and said to Qin Chuan, Maybe Zhou Lin is indeed kind to you now and is your friend. But when you fight with her father, are you sure she can maintain her current position? Or are you going to let Zhou Meng go for Zhou Lin and let the people of Black City plot against you? Facing Ningya's questions, Qin Chuan couldn't help but be silent. He didn't know how to answer these questions. Seeing Qin Chuan's silence, Ningya couldn't help but sigh again. She said to Qin Chuan earnestly, Qin Chuan, it's not that I want to measure the heart of a gentleman with my own mien. But have you ever thought that maybe Zhou Lin is Zhou Meng's backup plan? Hearing Ningya's words, Qin Chuan couldn't help but be slightly stunned. He was puzzled and asked, Backup plan? Ningya nodded and explained, After this incident, there is no possibility of reconciliation between you and Zhou Meng. You two have become life and death enemies. If Zhou Meng obtains the final victory, then he naturally won't be in any danger. But what if you obtain the final victory? Do you want to kill Zhou Meng? If Zhou Lin, who has a good relationship with you, comes out to stop you, will you still insist on killing Zhou Meng and force Zhou Lin to turn against you? Ningya's series of questions completely stunned Qin Chuan. To be honest, he had never thought about these questions, but these questions were not impossible. Because of Zhou Lin, even if Zhou Meng ended up in his hands, he might not be able to kill him. If he really killed Zhou Meng, Zhou Lin would no longer be his senior from that moment onwards. He would become Zhou Lin's father's murderer. But if he didn't kill Zhou Meng, would he really not have any grudges in his heart? Wouldn't he feel unreconciled? Seeing that Qin Chuan was completely stunned, Ningya stood up and walked to Qin Chuan's side. She patted his shoulder and said, You are already an adult. You should have your own considerations. No matter what decision you make in the end, I will support you. Think about it carefully. After saying this, Ningya walked out of the cultivation room. She had already said what she needed to say. The rest was up to Qin Chuan to make his own choice. Qin Chuan didn't have much time left to think about these questions. In a few days, it would be time to go to Star Dragon City to register as a reserve heir of Kunlun's field. At that time, he would definitely meet Zhou Lin. If he couldn't think through these questions, he didn't know how to face Zhou Lin. Chuan stayed alone in the practice room for 2 whole days. He didn't walk out of the practice room until Lu Zi came to inform him that they were about to leave for Star Dragon City. Lu Zi looked at Chuan's unshaven and haggard face. Although she felt sorry for him, she didn't know what to say to Chuan. "Give me 10 minutes. I will go wash up." 10 minutes later, Chuan appeared in front of Lu Zi again. He had returned to his original appearance and looked very energetic. It was as if the haggard person from before was just an illusion. However, Lu Zi knew that Chuan was still Chuan. He just hid his emotions. "Let's go." Chuan asked Lu Zi, "How many people are going to come with us this time?" He hadn't contacted anyone outside these 2 days. He didn't know how many people were going to become reserve heirs of Kunlun's field with him this time. Lu Zi replied, "Besides you and me, there will be Hu Xiao, Bai Yu, Long Xiao, and Shi Yu. You have a recommendation letter, so you can become a reserve heir of Kunlun's field directly. We need to pass the test to become reserve heirs of Kunlun's field." Hearing Lu Zi's words, Chuan frowned slightly and asked, "Where's Chongqing?" Hearing Chuan ask about Chongqing, Lu Zi said to Chuan after a short silence, "I haven't had time to tell you about Chongqing. He has left the school and returned to the Xintian sect." Chuan was very surprised. He asked, "How did he return to the Xintian sect?" The leader of the Xintian sect, Chun Xianfeng, who is Chun Chongqing's father, came to pick him up in person. Lu Zi looked at Chuan with a complicated expression and said, "I don't know the details, but Chongqing told them before he left that although he couldn't go with us, he would wait for us in Star Dragon City." Hearing Lu Zi's words, Chuan nodded slightly and said, "That's the only way." The two talked as they walked outside. Outside the apartment, Bai Yu and the others had been waiting for a long time. Chuan saw them and pursed his lips slightly. He said apologetically, "I'm sorry for making you worry about me these 2 days. No one was worried about you." Long Xiao chuckled and teased, "The Chuan I know is invincible. No matter what you face, the final winner will be you." Since Long Xiao and Chuan met, she had never seen Chuan lose to anyone. No matter what, Chuan was always the first. This was what she admired and envied the most about Chuan. "Since everyone is here, let's..." Chuan suddenly stopped talking. He looked at Hu Xiao and Bai Yu, who were silent in the crowd, and asked in surprise, "When did you reach the gold core stage?" Bai Yu answered succinctly, "Recently." Hu Xiao smiled and replied, "Just a week ago. I heard that you were crossing a level 9 lightning tribulation. Unfortunately, I can't compare with you. It's only a level 6 lightning tribulation." Hu Xiao originally thought that his talent was similar to Chuan's, but this tribulation made him realize that there was a huge gap between him and Chuan. He might not be able to catch up with Chuan in this lifetime, but Hu Xiao would not give up because of this. He always believed that hard work could make up for his lack of talent. As long as he worked hard enough, he could also become a powerhouse. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.